Chapter 4189. Surrender? Tens of millions of desolation survivors from the 12 tribes of the entire mulberry tree planet. Would all surrender? As this thought flashed through his mind, Yi Xian, who was greatly surprised, was stunned on the spot. In fact, he had long been mentally prepared to be extorted by these dozens of sector lord old monsters. After all, what he needed were the elixir refining techniques passed down through all the tribes and strongholds. Moreover, Yi Xian had already said frankly that these elixir refining techniques were indeed of great use to him. Under such circumstances, if he decided to hand over all these elixir refining techniques, the other party would obviously ask for a lot of benefits. Yi Xian had even roughly guessed what they wanted. It was nothing more than the remains of some high-level primordial life treasures, as well as all sorts of top-notch treasures and medicines. He had plenty of these things in his hands, and in fear of his cultivation base, these dozens of sector lord old monsters would not really ask for too much. Therefore, even if Yi Xian had the ability to seize them by force, he had never thought of doing so. Although he had long been used to extortion, his targets were all top-grade tribes and powers that were stronger than him and had deeper foundations. Compared to him, Yi Xian really couldn't do such a thing to the 12 great tribes of the remnant of Mulberry Star, who were clearly weaker than him and were more than just a little bit weaker. However, he had already planned to give out a considerable amount of treasured body remains and precious materials and medicines. But the other party had actually proposed to surrender. They did not want anything from Yi Xian at all, but instead offered their entire tribe. This was really embarrassing. However, Yi Xian was naturally happy to see this happen. The reason was very simple. On one hand, he was currently lacking manpower. No matter how few desolation survivors there were on Mulberry Tree Planet, there were still tens of millions of them. Although some of them were old, women and children, at least 2/3 of them were starry sky experts. To Yi Xian, this was definitely a new force to strengthen his subordinates. Once these tens of millions of desolation survivors matured in the future, their battle strength would be absolutely astonishing. On the other hand, even before these tens of millions of desolation survivors matured, their value was still indispensable to Yi Xian. That's right. They had agreed to hand over to Yi Xian all the various alchemy techniques that had been passed down from generation to generation in the 12 great tribes of Mulberry Tree Star. But even if Yi Xian studied them thoroughly, he could refine flesh medicines using these ancient techniques that had been passed down from the Desolation era. However, he was only one person after all. Moreover, in his opinion, the increase in his own cultivation was obviously more important. Therefore, Yi Xian would at most refine the following level 21 liquid, level 22 liquid, and other flesh and blood medicines for himself. As for Gui Hai Yi Dao, Song Qingyu, and the other 20,000 demon scouts, he simply did not have the time to refine them one by one. These were 20,000 demon scouts, and their current cultivation was still rather low. The consumption rate of the elixir would not be too low. If Yi Xian really had to refine the elixir for them alone, it would be tantamount to selling himself as a slave. He would not have the time to deal with other matters at all. Moreover, in addition to Gui Hai Yi Dao, Song Qingyu, and the other 20,000 demon scouts, he had many more subordinates on Sky River Star and Triumphant Return Star who also needed the elixir. If he had to take care of all of them, even if Yi Xian worked day and night to refine all kinds of elixirs, he would not be able to supply them all. However, this was not a problem at all for the survivors of the primordial era on Mulberry Star. There were 12 major tribes on Mulberry Star, as well as many mountain strongholds of various sizes. Each mountain stronghold had its own cauldron, and had priests who mastered different refining techniques. All of them could refine the elixir. If he were to accept the other party's surrender, then to Yi Xian, it would be no different from suddenly having tens of millions of alchemists that could refine flesh and blood medicine. Moreover, all of them were skilled in this field. It could be said that they were proficient in this field. Of course, he could not completely order them around as free labor. If he accepted their surrender, then these tens of millions of survivors of the primordial era on Mulberry Star would also become Yi Xian's subordinates. While they were immersed in refining the elixir, Yi Xian would also have to provide them with various resources to continue their tribe and improve their cultivation. This was undoubtedly a huge expense. Tens of millions of survivors of the primordial era was not a small number. Not to mention cultivation resources. Just bringing them along and allowing them to eat their fill every day required an astronomical amount of resources. However, this was perhaps a huge problem for the leaders of the 12 major tribes on Mulberry Star. After all, The Sector Lord Old Monster, who had just expressed his intention of surrendering to Yi Xian, had been hesitant in his words, as if it was extremely difficult for him to speak. Clearly, it was because he had thought of something. This problem. In his view, this was clearly bringing tens of millions of mouths waiting to be fed and adding to the burden of others. But to Yi Xian, this was not a big problem at all. Within the hundreds of millions of kilometers of the starry sky that the Xianxia tribe was forbidden to enter, there were already a large number of life stars where ferocious beasts ran amok. In the various regions tens of millions of kilometers away, there were even regions where ferocious beasts wreaked havoc in the starry sky. In Yi Xian's eyes, these regions and life stars were all sources of flesh and blood resources, and they were extremely plentiful. The survivors of the primordial era on Xianxia planet were too weak, so they didn't dare to have such an idea. However, Yi Xian wasn't afraid at all. If there was a need, he would directly send an army over. So, he could just start the hunt. Thinking of this, the light in his eyes gradually burned. Without any more hesitation, he immediately waved his hand and accepted the surrender of the 12 major tribes of Mulberry Star, the tens of millions of survivors of the primordial era. All of this came so quickly and so easily. The dozen or so Sector Lord Old Monsters who were originally nervous were pleasantly surprised and almost cried tears of joy on the spot. From this moment on, they finally had a backer, and it seemed to be extraordinarily strong. The entire tribe saw hope because of this. Chapter 4190. As Yi Xian's word sounded out, the entire atmosphere of Mulberry Star was instantly filled with thunderous cheers that were like mountains. The tens of millions of survivors of the Desolation era in the 12 tribes of the Mulberry Star and the countless villages of various sizes were all extremely excited at this moment. In their opinion, with Star Master Yi agreeing to take in all the Desolation tribes and villages on the Mulberry Star, a new era was undoubtedly about to begin. For countless years, the tens of millions of survivors of the primordial era on Mulberry Tree had been trapped in this ancient void that was only hundreds of millions of kilometers away. In every direction in the void around Mulberry Tree, there was a forbidden zone in the void, and in each forbidden zone sat Supreme Tribulation Realm ominous beasts. It was like a natural moat that cut off all the survivors of the primordial era from leaving Mulberry Tree. However, from this moment onwards, from the moment Star-Lord Yi decided to take them in as his subordinates, everything would completely change. In the battle just now, Star-Lord Yi did not even make a move. He only sent out 2 Tribulation Realm ferocious beasts under his command, and they easily annihilated an entire army of millions of ferocious beasts from one of the forbidden zones in the starry sky. Even the 2 Tribulation Realm ominous beasts leading the army had not been able to escape and had died in the void. Just the 2 Tribulation Realm ominous beasts under his command had such astonishing battle strength, so one could only imagine Star-Lord Yi's own battle strength. Moreover, he also had a powerful warship army under his command, and all this, as he himself had said, was only a part of the overall strength of his subordinates. With such a powerful backer, for the tens of millions of survivors of the primordial era on Mulberry Tree, leaving the sealed void and going to the wider universe outside was a reality that was absolutely not far away. As long as Star-Lord Yi was willing, he could take them out of Mulberry Tree at almost any time to go out and conquer the world. At this moment, in the void battlefield on the other side of Mulberry Tree where the great battle had just ended, the survivors of the primordial era, who had rushed out of the atmosphere from the various tribes and strongholds, had long been cleaned up. Including the 2 immortal-level ominous beasts, all the remains of the ominous beasts left behind after the annihilation of the million-strong army had been collected. Yi Xian was not the least bit interested in the remains of these low-level ominous beasts. He did not even intend to touch the remains of the 2 immortal-level ominous beasts. He still had plenty of remains of star beasts of this level in his possession, and for the tens of millions of survivors of the primordial era on Mulberry Tree Star, the harvest of this battle was unprecedentedly rich and astonishing. The millions of corpses left behind by this fierce beast army, including the treasures of the 2 immortal realm fierce beasts, will be up to you to discuss. The 12 great tribes, all the large and small strongholds, will be evenly distributed. This Star-Lord is not interested. Turning his head to look at the dozen or so realm master old monsters, Yi Xian's words changed as he continued. A similar harvest will become your daily routine in the near future. Because when the time is ripe, I will lead all the tens of millions of survivors of the 12 great tribes on Mulberry Tree Star. We will set off and conquer all directions. However, before that, whether it is the 20,000 scouts the Star-Lord brought out this time, or the tens of millions of survivors of the primordial era in the 12 tribes of Mulberry Tree Star, they all have to improve their cultivation as soon as possible. Otherwise, once all of them set off, they will encounter a stronger overall force. For the sake of a powerful ominous beast race, our losses will be extremely heavy. Hearing these words, the dozens of Sector Lord Old Monsters looked at each other awkwardly. Although Yi Xian's words were tactful, he could more or less understand the meaning behind them. Although there were many survivors of the primordial era on Mulberry Star, numbering in the tens of millions, in reality, when it came to overall combat strength, compared to the fierce beasts in the forbidden areas of the starry sky and the surrounding void, there were many. Not only that, but the difference was not small. In today's battle, although the million-strong ominous beast army from one of the forbidden areas of space had been completely annihilated, all of this had nothing to do with the survivors of the primordial era on Mulberry Tree Star. It was all thanks to the two heavenly tribulation ominous beasts under Star Lord Yi. In the future, once all the survivors of the 12 tribes of Mulberry Tree Star followed the expedition, it was obviously impossible for them to be like this every time as Star Lord Yi's subordinates went on expeditions. In this case, if the survivors didn't improve their cultivation as quickly as possible, after many bloody battles, the current population of tens of millions of survivors would soon be reduced sharply because of this. If the situation was even worse, it was not impossible for the entire race to be completely wiped out after a series of battles. After all, even they, as the core members of the upper echelons of the 12 tribes of Mulberry Tree Star, were only sector lords. If they encountered a universe-grade ominous beast, they would be wiped out. Not to mention the survivors of Mulberry Tree Star, who were far inferior to them in terms of cultivation strength. As these thoughts flashed through their minds, the joy on the faces of the dozen or so Sector Lord Old Monsters suddenly disappeared. All of them looked as if they had just been struck by lightning, wilting and frowning. After all, the total number of survivors of the 12 tribes of Mulberry Tree Star reached tens of millions. For such a huge race, it was not easy to quickly improve the cultivation strength of all the survivors. After returning to Mulberry Tree Star, Yi Xian went to the ancestral land of one of the 12 tribes. As far as his eyes could see, in a vast valley, a huge cauldron with a diameter of 10,000 meters jumped into his sight. The cauldron of Flat Mountain Village is only 1,000 meters in diameter, and its quality is far inferior to this 10,000-meter cauldron in front of us. Raising his finger to point at the 10,000-meter cauldron in front of him, Yi Xian turned to look at the Sector Lord Old Monster of the tribe and asked, "How many of these 10,000-meter cauldrons are there on Mulberry Tree Star?" "Reporting to my lord, on Mulberry Tree Star, there are thousands of mountain villages of various sizes under the 12 tribes. Each village has a cauldron in diameter. The small ones are 100 meters, the normal ones are 1,000 meters, and the large ones are around 2,000 to 3,000 meters. Hearing him ask about this, a Sector Lord Old Monster cupped his hands and respectfully reported, "As for these 10,000-meter cauldrons, there are only 12 of them, and they are located in the ancestral lands of the 12 tribes." 12? That's not bad. Nodding, Yi Xian ordered on the spot, "All the remains of the million-meter ominous beast army will be handed over to the mountain villages under the tribes to be refined into pills. As for the 12 10,000-meter cauldrons in the various tribes, I will use." Chapter 4191. After listening to Yi Xian, Gue Hai Yi Dao, Cong Qingyu, and the others, the dozen or so Sector Lord Old Monsters were already familiar with the division and name of the cultivation realms of the three main planes. Furthermore, because of Yi Xian's relationship with their master, they tried their best to use the names of the three main planes of the starry sky to determine their cultivation bases. As a result, when they suddenly heard Yi Xian's light words, the expressions of the dozen or so Realm Master Old Monsters abruptly changed, and they all cried out in alarm. "What? 10,000 remains of primordial creatures? They're all between the Star-Lord state and the Immortal state? How is that possible? Even we are only Sector Lord-level cultivators. In the entire Mulberry Tree Star, there are only a dozen or so of us, less than 20. Although there are more region lords, there are less than 100 of them. As for Star-Lords, there are only a few hundred. Besides, the Star-Lord state is only the lower limit of the 10,000 remains of primordial creatures. The upper limit is the Immortal state? There aren't too many remains of primordial creatures." Yi Xian nodded and continued in a calm tone, "It's not that I don't have any. As a matter of fact, I have a lot of remains of marquises, kings, emperors and emperors. The problem is that the cauldrons in your hands can't resist the pressure at all. If you throw a few of them in, the cauldrons will explode." Yi Xian shook his head and sighed. He seemed to be quite interested. "How about this? I'll take out 120 immortal remains. As for the 12 cauldrons, 10 for each cauldron. I should be able to handle them. As for the remaining remains, they're all Star Lords, Region Lords, Sector Lords, and Universe-grade primordial creatures. At this point, Yi Xian's eyes flashed with a bright light. This Star Master only has this many mid-grade primordial life treasure body remains. However, 12 batches of flesh and blood medicine should be enough for a short period of time. After using them all up, the time to set off will basically come. By then, there will be a huge number of powerful beasts in the void far away, waiting for us to harvest them. Mid-rank. Almost 10,000? Fine. It's true that the remains of Star Lords and Universe State treasures are only mediocre compared to the remains of the corpses of lords and kings, right? After hearing what the master said, I finally realized that we were really frogs in a well. That's right. It's such a blow. However, I'm suddenly excited when I think that I'll be able to refine flesh medicine of that level. It's so exciting. After hearing what Yi Xian said, the dozen or so sector lords looked at each other with resentment on their faces. Obviously, they had been dealt a heavy blow. However, at the same time that they were mercilessly struck down, their hearts were filled with excitement and excitement. After muttering for a while, Yi Xian's orders were quickly passed down by a dozen or so old fellows. In an instant, within the ancestral lands of the 12 great tribes of Mulberry Tree, a large number of ancient survivors exploded. Lai Di began the preparations for the refinement. To the tens of millions of survivors of the primordial era who lived on Mulberry G Star, this was absolutely unprecedented. The curtains to an unprecedented tide of medicine refinement were about to be lifted. In an instant, the entire Mulberry Tree, and the thousands of villages under the jurisdiction of the 12 tribes, began to refine like crazy. All the remains of the primordial bodies obtained from the annihilation of the million-strong army of beasts were distributed to the villages below. As for the 12 10,000-meter cauldrons in the ancestral lands of the 12 tribes, they were all used by Yi Xian to refine top-grade flesh medicine. Of course, this top grade was only relative to the flesh medicine that the tribes of Mulberry Tree had refined in the past. The 12 tribes, 12 10,000-meter cauldrons, were separated from each other by quite a distance, not in the same location. Although with Yi Xian's current cultivation and strength, an immortal old monster could appear anywhere in a star with a thought. If he had to use a wisp of the Shenlong's strange flame at the same time to raise the temperature of these 12 10,000-meter cauldrons, it was clearly impossible. Fortunately, the 10,000-meter cauldrons in the ancestral lands of the 12 tribes were different from the 1,000-meter cauldrons in the villages below. Although the cauldrons still attracted the earth core fire, because the quantity was larger and the fire formation was more profound, there was no need to raise the temperature of the cauldrons when refining the flesh medicine. Yi Xian was worried. What he needed to do was to draw a wisp of the Shenlong's strange flame to improve the quality of the flesh medicine in the cauldrons. That way, the 12 cauldrons wouldn't have to be used at the same time. It would be no problem to use them one by one. In one of the tribes, Yi Xian and a dozen sector lords from the other tribes were gathered. Not far ahead of them was a cauldron that was as large as a mountain. The spring water had been filled with the cauldron, and the earth core fire had been ignited below the cauldron. The water had been boiled, and the meat of the ferocious beasts could be thrown in. There were 12 cauldrons. Yi Xian had prepared almost 10,000 remains of primordial creatures above the Star-Lord state. The highest level among them was the immortal state. He had collected most of them at the edge of the dark world that looked like a black hole. After dividing it up, each 10,000-meter-long cauldron could hold nearly 1,000 corpses. Although they were of different sizes, some of the ancient corpses were quite large. Therefore, a 10,000-meter-long cauldron was not enough to hold nearly 1,000 corpses. When encountering such an enormous treasure body, Yi Xian could only activate the power of the Shenlong cauldron's internal domain. He directly turned the entire treasure body into a bloody mist, compressed it, and threw it into the 10,000-meter-tall cauldron. The whole process lasted for about the time it took to eat a meal. The nearly 1,000 corpses in the 10,000-meter-long giant cauldron were all thrown out. Throughout the whole process, all the surrounding survivors of the primordial era widened their eyes. Their bodies shook violently from time to time, and their mouths kept gasping. Normally, they would only see 1 or 2 corpses of desolate era creatures in a year. But now, there were hundreds and thousands of them, as if they were endless. They were falling into the cauldron like dumplings falling from the sky. Even though they had seen it with their own eyes, they still found it hard to believe. Chapter 4192. A day later, the remains of the 12 10,000-meter-tall cauldrons and all sorts of top-grade precious materials and medicines had basically been refined. Yi Xian began to make his move. From the Shunnong cauldron in his body, he drew out a wisp of the Shunnong 7-colored flame into each of the 10,000-meter-tall cauldrons. It increased the speed of the refinement process. Originally, it would take an entire 3 days of refinement. In the end, because Yi Xian introduced a wisp of the Shunnong 7-colored flame into the cauldron, the time was shortened by half. In less than 2 days, it was completed one after another. Then, the priests of the 12 tribes who had inherited the alchemy techniques took action. Streams of obscure rune energy with a profound and ancient aura were injected into the 10,000-meter-tall cauldrons. In an instant, it triggered a shocking phenomenon like a dragon soaring and a tiger roaring. Such a scene was repeated in the 12 great tribes of Mulberry Tree Star. Then, in the other villages of various sizes, some small cauldrons also entered the late stages of refinement. As the priests in the villages formed hand seals to end the refinement, similar scenes instantly appeared on the entire Mulberry Tree Star. One after another, it was a spectacular sight. The tens of millions of survivors on Mulberry Tree Star had never seen such a scene before. They were completely stunned. Then, everyone became inexplicably excited, because such a phenomenon represented that they were about to obtain a top-grade flesh medicine. After the 12 cauldrons of flesh medicine came out of the cauldron, all of them had a faint purple-gold color, which was enough to show their high quality. Each cauldron was 10,000 meters in diameter. There were a total of 12 cauldrons, and the light purple-gold flesh medicine that came out of each cauldron had reached more than 60% of the height of the cauldron wall. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the total amount of flesh medicine that came out of the 12 cauldrons was. Although the tens of millions of desolate ancient survivors on Mulberry Tree Star were already subordinates of Yi Xian, just like Gui Hai Yi Dao, Song Qingyu, and the 20,000 Devil Cultivator Scouts under their command. However, after all, the main 20,000 Devil Cultivator Scouts had come to the battlefield, and their missions and roles were different from those of the tens of millions of desolate ancient survivors. Therefore, it was not that Yi Xian favored one and discriminated against the other. In short, of the 12 cauldrons of top-grade flesh medicine, 60% were all given to Gui Hai Yi Dao and Song Qingyu. As for the remaining 40%, Yi Xian handed it over to a dozen sector lord old monsters, allowing them to choose the stronger members of the 12 tribes to distribute. After all, the other ordinary clansmen still had other medicines made from flesh and blood that they could use. It was more practical to use these top-grade medicines to cultivate a powerful elite troop. Yi Xian didn't ask how the 40% of the top-grade flesh medicine was distributed among the 12 tribes of the desolation survivors on Mulberry Tree Star. However, according to Yi Xian's order, the 20,000 demon scouts under his command were given to Gui Hai Yi Dao and Song Qingyu. Equal distribution. This 60% represented a vast amount of light purple-gold top-grade flesh medicine. If it was divided equally among the 20,000 demon dweller scouts, each of them would definitely receive a significant amount. In addition, its quality was definitely extraordinary. Therefore, according to Yi Xian's deductions and estimations, these 20,000 demon cultivator scouts should all be able to push their cultivation to the 15th great realm of the starry sky, which was the universe realm, within a short period of time. After all, these 20,000 universe realm experts were familiar with each other and formed a troop. Once they entered the battlefield, their combat strength would absolutely be shocking. Not to mention that there were already some fellows amongst them whose cultivations far surpassed the others. Now, with the boost provided by the light purple-gold flesh medicine, it wasn't impossible for their cultivations to advance to the region lord realm or even the world lord realm in a short period of time. There was no doubt that with this crazy refinement throughout Mulberry Tree Star, no matter if it was Gui Hai Yi Dao, Song Qingyu, or the other 20,000 desolate ancient survivors under Yi Xian's command or the 12 tribes and over 1,000 strongholds on Mulberry Tree Star, all of them had improved greatly in terms of cultivation. They were about to experience a huge surge in strength. After all the flesh and medicine had been distributed, the vigorous seclusion and cultivation immediately began. Gui Hai Yi Dao, Song Qingyu, and the other 20,000 demon dweller scouts had entered Mulberry Tree Star, and they formed small groups and entered the wilderness to find places to cultivate. On the other hand, the few tens of millions of desolate ancient survivors on Mulberry Tree Star had successively entered into closed-door cultivation within their respective strongholds. As for Yi Xian, he'd left Mulberry Tree Star. After he charged out of the atmosphere of the star, he directly withdrew the Farmer God Cauldron in space that was a few million kilometers away from the atmosphere. After that, his figure flashed, and he sat down cross-legged at the mouth of the Farmer God Cauldron that was enshrouded by 9-colored mist. This time, he'd kept 1,000 cubic meters of the flesh medicine he'd refined. This was for the purplish warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru. However, 300 cubic meters was enough for each of the 3 girls, and he stored them in 3 small spatial bottles. As for the remaining 100 cubic meters, Yi Xian had planned to use it all at once. Even if he swallowed like a whale, he wouldn't be able to drink 100 cubic meters. However, he could compress it with the farmer god Cauldron's domain. In the end, it was only a foot in radius, and Yi Xian raised his hand and slapped it into his stomach. The energy quickly spread out, and at this moment, he closed his eyes and began to refine. However, Yi Xian actually didn't have high expectations for the 100 cubic meters of flesh medicine. Although the flesh medicine he refined this time was light purple gold in color and was of extraordinary quality, his cultivation base had already reached the immortal realm. However, when he refined the flesh medicine, he only used 10 immortal realm corpses for each cauldron of the immortal realm corpses. Based on this point alone, Yi Xian had already expected that they wouldn't be very effective for him. According to his estimation, with his current strength, it was basically impossible for his cultivation level to soar again, unless he used the remains of quasi-desolation level supreme beings to refine the great medicine. Other than that, even if he used the remains of Marquis or Emperor level undying treasures, it would still be impossible. Although the effect of the flesh medicine he'd refined would be much better, it definitely wouldn't be able to soar so much. Half a day later, Yi Xian opened his eyes. At this moment, a familiar system notification sounded in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu mantra. Current realm. Level 3 of the immortal realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the body chi and blood. Current realm. Level 3 of the immortal realm. Before this, the strength of his original body was at level 2 of the immortal realm. Once he activated the bloodline of the ancient ape demons with 3 heads and 6 arms, his strength soared again to level 3 of the immortal realm. Chapter 4193. With Yi Xian's current strength as an immortal, he had only managed to break through one small level after consuming 100 cubic cubes of this light purplish gold flesh medicine that was refined with the remains of 10 immortal level treasured beings of the desolate era in each cauldron. It was only the domain. Such a result greatly disappointed him, because he knew that this breakthrough was not entirely due to the 100 cubic cubes of light purplish gold flesh medicine. Another reason was that there was still some energy from the heavenly tribulation in his body that had not been refined when he was undergoing the heavenly tribulation, and this time, he had completely refined it during his closed-door cultivation. In fact, if it were someone else, such as the 2 immortal-level ferocious beast old monsters under his command, Flying Centipede and Old Monster Silver Pole, they would definitely be overjoyed if they could raise their immortal-level cultivation by one small level in just half a day. However, when placed in Yi Xian's situation, it really wasn't much. It could not be helped. Along the way, every breakthrough he made was different from the others. The speed was so fast that it made one's hair stand on end. Moreover, he often made 2 or even 3 consecutive breakthroughs. He had even made 2 or 3 breakthroughs during his closed-door cultivation. As such, it was only a small breakthrough, so it was naturally a little tasteless. However, he also knew that in the future, this situation would most likely become a normal occurrence. After all, his current strength was far from what it used to be. Back then, his cultivation base was weak, so it was easy for him to break through. But now, he was a powerful immortal old monster. It was impossible for him to make his cultivation base soar like a rocket like before. It was absolutely unrealistic. Unless he encountered some kind of special opportunity. Although I don't need to consider making a breakthrough of one large level in one go, it's still possible to make 2 or even 3 consecutive breakthroughs. As he muttered to himself, Yi Xian's low spirits quickly rose again. After all, I'm now an immortal level old monster. It's quite good to make 2 or even 3 consecutive breakthroughs in one go. After all, as long as I do this a few more times, I'll be able to rise by a large level and become an official or even an emperor. It's not impossible. Speaking of this, his eyes lit up, and he became confident again. Most importantly, although I don't have many corpses below the immortal realm, I don't have many corpses above the immortal realm. However, I don't have many corpses from the primordial era up to the supreme primordial era. A few, but still a lot. As for the remains of the supreme primordial and the primordial supreme primordial, the headless infant corpses are still not allowed to be used by this planet. However, that doesn't matter as the quasi-primordial supreme primordial supreme primordial supreme primordial supreme primordial supreme primordial supreme primordial corpses are not restricted at all. From the looks of it, it's time to refine a cauldron of corpses that mainly use corpses of marquee undyings as raw materials and add a few quasi-desolation level flesh medicines. However, I'm afraid Gue Hai Yi Dao and the others won't be able to digest such a level of flesh medicine. However much you refine, just keep it for yourself. At most, I'll give some to Flying Centipede and Silver G. Yes, I'll leave some for Mosquito Butcher and the others too. However, before that, I'll have to study the potion refining methods passed down by the 12 tribes on Mulberry Ji planet thoroughly. Thinking of this, Yi Xian immediately gave the order to the devouring system in his body, allowing the system to display the results of its analysis and deduction. Previously, the summary of all the potion refining methods passed down by the 12 tribes on Mulberry Ji planet and the thousands of mountain strongholds under their jurisdiction was given to Yi Xian. He immediately threw it to the devouring system in his body after it was handed over to him. The amount of information contained in the thousands of mountain strongholds potion refining methods passed down by the thousands of mountain strongholds was imaginable. If Yi Xian were to study, comprehend, and learn them one by one, it would probably take him at least a very long time to fully understand them all. Besides, the potion refining methods passed down by the thousands of mountain strongholds were all incomplete. They had been passed down from generation to generation, so there might be some mistakes. Therefore, the best way was to give them all to the devouring system in his body and let the system analyze and deduce them. Finally, the system would summarize them, eliminate the imperfections, and summarize a set of the most perfect and effective potion refining methods. In this way, Yi Xian would be able to grasp them faster. It was only a set of methods and it was perfect. Naturally, it was easy to master. Of course, the perfection here was based on all the information about the potion refining methods that he currently had. In fact, after leaving this star area in the future, Yi Xian would definitely be able to obtain other, different potion refining methods from the tribes of the survivors of the remote antiquity who lived on other vital planets. At that time, he would definitely have to give them to the devouring system in his body again to deduce, analyze and summarize them. In this way, the potion refining methods in his hands would continue to be improved until they reached a truly perfect level in the end. Soon, following Yi Xian's instructions, a piece of obscure information was directly transmitted from the system database of the devouring system in his body to Yi Xian's mind, allowing him to grasp all the tricks in an instant. This set of potion refining methods was the result of the system's analysis, deduction, and summary of all the information in its hands. It was not too complicated and was very easy to grasp, but it contained a lot of information. Yi Xian spent more than 2 hours to completely master it. Next, it was time to refine the top-grade blood and flesh medicine that he needed. This time, Yi Xian took out the remains of 108 creatures of the remote antiquity, mainly of the 5th stage of the immortal level. There were a total of 105 corpses, including 75 ordinary immortal level corpses, 10 marquis and king level corpses, and 5 emperor level corpses. The last 3 corpses were the remains of powerful beings of the remote antiquity level. They could be said to be extremely precious. The aura of the remains of such a level of treasure was extremely strong. Except for the netherworld stove and Yi Xian's Shenong cauldron, he had not seen a third cauldron-shaped magic treasure that could be stored and endured. Yes, of course it was not that there were none. It was just that Yi Xian had not come into contact with them. He was very clear about this. Yi Xian had always been in awe of the mysterious and distant remote antiquity. He had never dared to look down on it. Xiao. Xiao xiao xiao. Chapter 4194. In the space inside the farmer god cauldron, at the bottom of the volcano in the central region. Among Yi Xian's subordinates, only the 8 great guardian deities, Flying Centipede, and Old Monster Silver G were still in the space inside the farmer god cauldron. Oh right, there was still Shi Wan Jin, but he was still in a deep sleep and hadn't woken up yet. At this moment, the 8 great guardian deities, Flying Centipede, and Old Monster Silver G were standing on the plain at the bottom of the volcano in the central region. They raised their heads slightly and looked at the sky above the huge flame pool in the central region, their faces full of shock. Although Yi Xian didn't enter the space inside the cauldron, he still sat cross-legged at the mouth of the farmer god cauldron, which was shrouded in 9-colored fog. However, this cauldron had been completely refined by him, so he could control everything in it with just a thought. Just now, with his thought, 108 corpses of treasured bodies of primordial creatures, which were at least at the level of ordinary undying, a large amount of top-grade precious materials, and over 1,000 cubic meters of mixed liquid of netherworld furnace essence and innate chilling spiritual liquid were all taken out by him. They were floating in the air above the flame pool at the bottom of the central region volcano. This scene was extremely magnificent. Not to mention the 8 great guardian deities. Even the flying centipede and old eccentric silver beacon were dumbstruck. They were shocked to the point it was as if they had just been struck by lightning, and they simply didn't dare believe what they were seeing. Heavens! Boss actually has so many corpses of primordial beings in his possession. He casually tossed out 108 corpses, and every one of them has an aura that is stronger than mine. At the very least, they are no ordinary late-stage sempiternal realm experts. Am I hallucinating? And those precious materials, TSK, each of them is rare in the world. Hey, why does that 9 heaven soul cleansing grass look so familiar? I think it's from the treasure vault of our Silver G clan. An undying in our clan applied to use it, but he was rejected. How come Boss has it now? In it? And those liquids, why do I feel the strong aura of the netherworld furnace? And, heavens, it's the innate chilling spirit liquid. Obviously, this liquid is a mixture of the two. TSK. Sure enough, the nest of the demon clan in the second universe was destroyed by Boss. The pool of innate cold spiritual liquid in their ancestral land is probably all in his hands. From the looks of it, it seems that Boss is going to concoct pills? Heavens, using the mixture of netherworld furnace lotion and innate cold spirit liquid to replace the spirit spring water, and the other flesh materials and precious herbs are even more precious. How heaven-defying will the medicinal effect of this cauldron of flesh medicine be after it is refined? That's not important. What I'm most concerned about right now is, will we get a share after it's refined? Boom. Rumble. Swish. While the 8 great guardian deities were stunned and petrified, while the flying centipede and old eccentric silver pole were drooling and muttering softly, an unexpected change suddenly occurred. Suddenly, a loud rumbling sound came from the flame pool below the large pile of top-grade refining materials. An energy-shaped cauldron condensed from the Shenong 7-colored flames rapidly rose from the flame pool. Immediately after, a series of air-piercing sounds rang out. All the materials that were originally floating above the flame pool automatically flew into the huge cauldron condensed from the Shenong 7-colored flames. In the blink of an eye, they had already melted and merged together. All of this was clearly seen by the 8 great guardian deities and the 2 immortal old monsters on the side of the plains at the bottom of the volcano in the central domain. This was because this cauldron was not a physical body at all, but condensed from the Shenong 7-colored flames. It was clearly visible. Swish. Swish, swish, swish. In just a few breaths of time, all the remains of the treasure body, top-grade materials, and precious medicines that had automatically flown into the cauldron were all melted and merged together. This scene was simply unbelievable. The 10 fellows who had witnessed this scene with their own eyes opened their mouths wide once again. Before they could recover from their shock, dense air-piercing sounds came from the mouth of the central domain volcano above them once again. Obscure runes of different colors and shapes fell from the top of the volcano like rain, covering the sky and earth, directly falling into the cauldron. Inside the 7-colored cauldron, these densely packed obscure runes were created by Yi Xian, who was sitting cross-legged at the mouth of the cauldron, using the perfect alchemy technique that he had just mastered. At this moment, as they fell into the 7-colored cauldron above the flame pool at the bottom of the central domain volcano, this cauldron of top-grade flesh medicine was completely refined. It was so fast that it made one's hair stand on end. The time was almost negligible. It couldn't be helped. Even the body of the cauldron was condensed from the pure Shenong 7-colored flame, and the highest level of the flesh materials used this time was only at the quasi-desolation age level, and there were only 3 of them. Under such circumstances, it would be strange if it wasn't fast. Roar! 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 As these dense and obscure runes fell into the 7-colored energy cauldron, this cauldron of flesh and blood medicine was completely formed. For a moment, the phantoms of true dragons and true phoenixes all rushed out of the cauldron, craning their necks and roaring clearly, causing the 8 great guardian deities and the flying centipede, who were watching from afar in the plains at the bottom of the volcano in the central region, to be stunned. Old Monster G and the others were so scared that they trembled and almost fell to the ground. Boom! In the next moment, a huge roar sounded. The 7-colored cauldron above the central domain's flame pool bloomed with infinite light. In an instant, It turned into specks of 7-colored brilliance that sprinkled down on the flame pool below. Now that this cauldron of top-grade flesh medicine was finished, the cauldron condensed from the Shenong 7-colored flame naturally retreated, returning to the flame pool as the 7-colored divine flame. Now, floating above the flame pool was a large canopy of purple-gold top-grade flesh medicine. It wasn't like the faint purple gold that the 12 main cauldrons of the 12 tribes on Mulberry G-Star had refined, but it was pure purple gold. As for its size, it was as large as a mountain and exuded a dense energy aura. Looking at this mountain-like purple gold top-grade flesh medicine, whether it was the 8 great guardian deities, the flying centipede, or old monster Silver Beacon, the breathing of all 10 of them instantly quickened. Their eyes even shone with a burning desire. Although they hadn't tasted it yet, they already knew that these flesh medicine would definitely increase their cultivation and strength by leaps and bounds. In the face of such an opportunity, no one would be unmoved. Chapter 4195. A woo! As soon as Yixian finished his words, the 8 great Vajras, flying centipede, and old monster Inji at the bottom of the volcano in the central domain instantly became excited and howled like wolves. Without hesitation, he immediately took out his storage magic treasure, activated the power in his body, and took out 100 cubic meters of purple gold flesh medicine hanging in the sky above the flame pool in the central area. Then he spread out, found a place to eat, and went into seclusion to make a breakthrough. Yes. Yixian didn't pay attention to these fellows. He immediately took out a few small spatial bottles and stored all of the top-grade purple gold flesh and blood medicine that was like a mountain range. The flesh medicine he refined this time was not only of excellent quality, but also of astonishing quantity. There were as many as a mountain. Apart from the portion he had specially left for old monster Mosquito Butcher and the others, most of the remaining flesh medicine was enough for Yixian to promote his cultivation base to the 9th level of the Marquis Immortal Realm. At that time, he would need to refine a cauldron of even higher quality flesh medicine. Of course, in order to advance from the peak of the 9th step to the Immortal Realm, Yixian would need to refine a special flesh and blood medicine that was used to break through the bottleneck of the realm. Its effect was different from the flesh and blood medicine that only increased one's cultivation, so it was called the Marquis Immortal. Level 21 Liquid. It should be more suitable. However, that was a matter for the future. At present, Yixian's cultivation base was only at the 3rd level of the Immortal Realm. He was still some distance away from the 9th level of the perfection of the Immortal Realm, so there was no need to be too anxious. After packing up all the flesh and blood medicines, Yixian pondered for a moment and quickly made a decision. He planned to take advantage of this moment to consume some of the top-grade flesh and blood medicines that he had just refined, and then immediately go into seclusion to begin a new round of cultivation breakthroughs. Because not long ago, his cultivation base had reached the 3rd level of the Immortal Realm. If he activated the ancient ape demon's true form with 3 heads and 6 arms and directly entered the 5th change of the ape demons, his cultivation base would instantly soar to the 9th level of the Immortal Realm. Perfect. He was only a small step away from the Marquis Immortal Realm. Although the 9th level of the perfection of the Immortal Realm and the 1st level of the Marquis Immortal Realm seemed to be only a small step away, the battle strength of the two was very different. Next, Yixian would soon lead tens of millions of remote antiquity survivors on Xianxia Star to attack the forbidden lands in the surrounding void far away. Then, he would walk out of this void that had been sealed for countless years. Yixian needed a stronger battle strength. Since it was only a small breakthrough, and he had the ability to do it now, then this matter should be done sooner rather than later. The Marquis Immortal Realm's Immortal Realm? Not long ago, Xianxia was star as master of the Immortal Realm Immortal Thought. After making his decision, Yixian's eyes flashed with a bright light. His entire body instantly became excited as he tightly clenched his right fist. Even after this breakthrough, I can only activate the bloodline of the 3-headed, 6-armed ancient demon ape and use the 5th transformation of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape before I can possess the strength of the 1st level of the conferred Immortal Realm. But for the time being, it's enough. Saying this, he didn't say anything else. Sitting cross-legged in the mouth of the farmer god cauldron, he waved his hand. Show! With a wave of Yixian's hand, a dazzling purple gold treasure light instantly shot out from the interior of the Shenong cauldron below him. When it arrived in front of him, it quickly stopped and turned into a purple gold liquid that was only a foot long. This foot-sized purple gold liquid was precisely the top-grade flesh medicine he had just refined. It was also the result of compressing the divine farmer cauldron's domain's power. However, it wasn't 100 cubic meters. but only 10 cubic meters. The color of a flesh medicine of this level had already reached the true purplish gold color, and its medicinal effect was so strong and overbearing that it was far from being comparable to the light purplish gold flesh medicine he had swallowed before. If it was compressed into 100 cubic meters and swallowed all at once, even with Yi Xian's current cultivation strength of the third level of the immortal realm and his powerful physical strength, it was very likely that his physical body would be damaged. Therefore, in order to be safe, and in addition to the fact that his set goal this time was only to break through a small level, according to the results of his deduction of the effect of this purple gold blood flesh medicine, 10 cubic meters of it each time was the best amount. Xiao! A weak sound of something breaking through the air rang out. The foot-long purple gold flesh and blood medicine in front of him seemed to have a spirit of its own under Yi Xian's command. It automatically rushed into his mouth and entered his stomach in a flash. The entire purple gold flesh medicine melted almost instantly and turned into a majestic energy. It began to circulate rapidly in Yi Xian's sea of knowledge and the limbs and bones of his physical body. What was different from the previous times was that in the past, when such a situation occurred, it was often accompanied by a burning sensation like magma. His entire physical body felt as if it was about to be torn apart, and it was extremely painful. But this time, when refining this purple gold flesh medicine, the water that replaced the spirit spring was a mixture of the mild netherworld furnace milk and the cold innate cold spiritual liquid. Therefore, when this purple gold flesh medicine melted in Yi Xian's body, it did not have the burning sensation of a rock general at all. It easily tore apart the shackles of human potential in his body. Walala! Following the disappearance of the shackles, Yi Xian's body instantly emitted a sound of energy flowing that was even more rapid and violent than before, causing his entire body to feel comfortable. The next moment, Yi Xian opened his eyes and a familiar system prompt sounded in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu formula. Current realm. 4th level of the immortal realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the Qi and blood body. Current realm. 4th level of the immortal realm. Before this, the strength of his original body was at 3rd level of the immortal realm. Once he activated the bloodline of the ancient demon ape with 3 heads and 6 arms, his strength soared again and directly reached 4th level of the immortal realm. If he used the 9 changes of the demonic ape and reached the 5th change, he would instantly reach 9th level of the immortal realm. And now, as his strength broke through again, once Yi Xian activated the bloodline of the ancient demon ape and entered the 5th change of the ancient demon ape, his peak battle strength would reach 1st level of the Marquis Immortal Realm. He would finally have the strength of the Marquis Immortal Realm. Chapter 4196. Roar! As Yi Xian roared towards the sky and activated the ancient demon ape's bloodline, the power within his body instantly surged like a surging river. It surged mightily and instantly became boundless. His body began to swell rapidly like a balloon that had been blown up. Before he could finish his roar, an ancient ape demon with 3 heads and 6 arms had already appeared in the void. The aura of the 3 true forms of flesh, blood, bones, and black mist was astonishing, and its size reached a height of 100 feet. At this moment, no matter how one looked at it, the current Yi Xian was no longer a human. Instead, he was an ancient demon ape with a powerful bloodline. He had 3 heads and 6 arms, and the aura emanating from his body was shockingly ferocious. As for his strength, after entering the ancient demon ape bloodline, it increased by 1 small level and reached level 5 of the immortal realm. However, this was only the beginning. Roar! 9 changes of demon ape. First change. Another furious roar rang out, and the ancient ape demon's body instantly swelled to 10 times its original height of 100 feet, reaching its current height of 1,000 feet. Its strength also increased by 1 small level and reached level 6 of the immortal realm. Then similar scenes appeared several times. Roar! 9 changes of demon ape. 4th change. A 5th roar rang out as the ancient ape demon's ferocious 3-headed, 6-armed body expanded to a height of 1,000,000 feet after entering its 4th transformation. Its strength had reached level 9 of the immortal realm, which was half a step away from the Marquis level 9 of the immortal realm. However, this wasn't the end. Yi Xian's current, demonic ape 9 transformations, bloodline ability, had already been comprehended to the 5th transformation a long time ago. Roar! 9 changes of demon ape. 5th change. The last roar came out. The ancient demon ape's body expanded again, reaching a height of 30 million meters. At this time, its strength had reached level 1 of the Marquis level 6 of the immortal realm. The second generation of the demon ape bloodline was also a marquee level 1. Although he wasn't level 1, he wasn't much stronger than Yi Xian. This was because Yi Xian, who possessed a body of over 1,000,000 meters, was already comparable to 1 or 2 levels of cultivation within the boundless qi and blood of this terrifying devil ape true body. Ordinary level 1 of the marquee level 1 of the starry sky were no match for him. Once they fought head-on, they would be crushed by Yi Xian. Now, his overall strength was equivalent to level 3 of the marquee level 6 of the immortal realm. Without taking the fallen sky bow and the power of the farmer god cauldron into consideration, his strength was level 3 of the immortal realm. In just a blink of an eye, 1,000,000 Zhonglong ancient demon ape crossed the void like a small meteor. Not only was it emitting the aura of a level 1 marquee immortal realm expert, but its blood qi was so abundant that it could make one's hair stand on end. This scene had long alarmed the desolation survivors on Xianxia Star thousands of miles away. A few tribes and strongholds rushed out from Mulberry Star, including the dozen or so sector lord old monsters. When they suddenly saw such a terrifying beast in the void, their expressions changed greatly. They were so terrified that even their bodies began to tremble. They didn't recognize this terrifying ancient demon ape bloodline at all. It was actually their master Yi Xian who had just surrendered not long ago. In fact, if they didn't already know about this, even if Gue Hai Yi Dao, Cong Qingyu and the rest of the demon ape scouts who had followed Yi Xian for a long time were all pulled over, none of them would recognize him. Marquee level undying. It's actually in marquee level undying. It's over. It's really over this time. The heavens are going to destroy our Xianxia star. This powerful being is terrifying. Even if the master and his 2 undying level beasts attack at the same time, they won't have a chance of winning. Shocked, the dozens of sector lord old monsters muttered to themselves. Their minds were completely shaken. Facing such a powerful marquee level undying, they didn't even have the thought of fleeing. Because a marquee level undying spirit sense was enough to cover trillions of miles around Xianxia star. No matter how fast they were, how could they be faster than the supreme beast before them? As long as they couldn't instantly escape the vast region covered by his spirit sense, it would be useless no matter how they tried to escape. If he wanted to kill them, he could catch up any time and destroy them with a wave of his hand. Conversely, if he didn't have such intentions and simply looked down on them like ants, there would be no need to flee. If they really did that, they might anger him instead, and the result would be the opposite of what they wanted. Yi Xian didn't care about all this. At this time, he was extremely excited. The power of a marquee level undying was indeed worlds apart from a normal undying. Without mentioning anything else, just the strength of the spirit sense was enough to shock him. At this moment, he casually spread out his divine sense, and in an instant, with the position of his body as the center point, everything in the universe within 100 million miles was displayed in his mind. As long as he slightly thought about it, any corner of this vast and boundless starry sky could be seen. Everything would be displayed. And in terms of power there was no need to say more. Yi Xian didn't even doubt that a single punch from him would be able to turn Mulberry Star, which was millions of kilometers away, into cosmic dust. He naturally wouldn't do anything to Xianxia Star. However, the other abandoned stars in the distance were no problem at all. Since he had already activated the bloodline true body of the 3-headed 6-armed ancient demon ape, and had even used the 9 transformations of the demon ape bloodline ability to the 5th transformation, if he didn't test out the terrifying immortal power that he suddenly felt in his body, Yi Xian's heart would truly itch. Soon he chose his target. It was millions of miles away, but in the opposite direction of Xianxia Star. As such, this abandoned star was more than 10 million miles away from Xianxia Star. At such a long distance, no matter how powerful this attack was, Xianxia Star wouldn't be affected. Roar! Yi Xian raised his head and roared. At this moment, Yi Xian used all the strength in his body. His body stood in the air and didn't move at all. However, the right arm of the flesh and blood true body of the 3 true bodies was raised high up into the air and suddenly blasted out. Ka-cha-cha! Hong! Hong long long! A formless and terrifying power rushed out from Yi Xian's fist. As it whizzed out, the void along the way shattered inch by inch. Its speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, a huge explosion came from the abandoned star millions of miles away. However, this explosion didn't last long because everything was over very quickly. This abandoned star, which was about the same size as Xianxia Star, was blasted into space dust by Yi Xian's punch from millions of miles away. Chapter 4197. Shattering a medium-sized star with a single punch was something that some of the more powerful ordinary undying beings could do, but they definitely couldn't do it so easily. Moreover, Yi Xian was in the void of the universe millions of kilometers away from this medium-sized star, and with a single punch, he was able to accomplish this. Such a terrifying destructive power. Such a punch could only be done by a marquee-level undyings. At this moment, as Yi Xian waved his arm and smashed this medium-sized abandoned star into cosmic dust from millions of kilometers away, the ancient survivors outside the atmosphere of Mulberry Star, who were tens of thousands of kilometers away from him, were instantly scared witless. A marquee-level undying being, even if he was just standing there, could already exert a terrifying pressure on them. Not to mention, such a being was so angry that he smashed a mid-sized star a few million miles away with a single punch. Although Xianxia Star was a little far from where he was, the difference between 10 million miles and a few million miles was not that big. His opponent could destroy the abandoned star in the void that was a few million miles away with a single punch. Yi Xian could smash Xianxia Star with just one punch. The only thing he needed to do was to turn around, because Xianxia Star was behind him. As soon as this thought flashed through his mind, the ancient ape demon, which was millions of feet tall and looked like a small star, slowly turned around and looked in the direction of Xianxia Star. Oh my God, we're doomed! With one punch, an entire star is smashed into dust. There's no use running away. God, destroy my Xianxia Star, destroy my Xianxia Star. Ah, that's... Look, that ancient ape's body is shrinking rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a human? Star Master Yi? Master? Was this old man hallucinating? That marquee-level undying's ancient ape has turned into a master? Hallucination. It must be a hallucination. Seeing this terrifying ancient ape demon slowly turn around and look in the direction of Mulberry Star, the experts outside the atmosphere of the star were instantly scared out of their wits and let out cries of despair. However, just as they screamed, Yi Xian had already removed the three-headed, six-armed ancient ape bloodline true form and returned to his original human form. This scene happened to be witnessed by the survivors outside the atmosphere of Xianxia Star. After being stunned for a short while, they all screamed, thinking they were hallucinating. What are you screaming for? Have you lost your mind? It wasn't until Yi Xian flashed over and instantly arrived in front of them from tens of thousands of kilometers away that they finally recovered from their nearly insane state and fell into a daze once again. All of them were dumbstruck, and the expressions on their faces were as if they had just been struck by lightning. After a long while, the dozens of Sector Lord old monsters were the first to react. They trembled and immediately asked Yi Xian in surprise. Master, where is that big monkey just now? No, no, no. Where is that marquee-level undying ancient ape senior? Are you blind? You clearly saw the entire process. That senior is our master. That's right, our master is a marquee-level undying. Whether it's a human or a monkey, ancient ape, it's not important. The key is his cultivation level. Xianxia Star is thriving. Our Xianxia tribe is thriving. With our master here, we can sweep through all the space-forbidden areas in the distant void in one day. Against a marquee-level undying, those space beasts won't be able to match up to him. Yi Xian rolled his eyes and sneered as he watched these fellows dance around, each and every one of them acting as if they had just been injected with chicken blood. That's right, this Star Lord will indeed begin his conquest of the surrounding starry sky forbidden zones soon. However, at that time, all of you will be able to do so. You will all follow me. I've already scanned the area with my immortal rank divine sense. There are a total of 6 forbidden zones in the surroundings. Each of them has 2 to 3 immortal rank beasts guarding them. One of them only has one left. It should be the nest of the million-strong beast army that was just annihilated not long ago. Even if I were to act, I would only be able to destroy those undying level beasts. The remaining beasts will depend on you all. This is weapon refinement. Speaking of which, Yi Xian turned and walked into the distant void. I'll give you all 1 more month. In this month, everyone on Xianxia Star will enter closed-door training. Everything else will be put aside. As for the guards, I'll be guarding the space outside of Xianxia Star's atmosphere. You all don't need to worry, just focus on breaking through. After which, Yi Xian was already 10 million miles away. With a wave of his hand, he summoned the Shen Nong cauldron that was as huge as a star. In a flash, he crossed-legged at the entrance of the cauldron, sitting down cross-legged. See? What a huge cauldron! This cauldron, could it be the legendary era treasure? The Shen cauldron? It should be. I didn't expect it to fall into Master's hands. Such an important artifact of the era represents extraordinary luck. Since this cauldron is in Master's hands, it means that a portion of the primordial world's luck already belongs to Master. Suddenly seeing the complete form of the Shen cauldron, the experts outside the atmosphere of the Mulberry G star were instantly horrified. While gasping for breath, they continued to cry out in alarm. After a long while, the stronger primordial survivors, under the leadership of the dozen sector lords, turned around and charged towards Xianxia star in the atmosphere. Yi Xian's words just now made them feel quite pressured. Fortunately, they not only had the light purple gold top-grade flesh and blood medicine in their hands, but also had a whole month to improve their cultivation base. Not everyone could improve their cultivation base by leaps and bounds. But with this top-grade flesh and blood medicine in hand, they didn't need to worry about it. Under the condition of full cultivation, it should be no problem for them to break through 2 or 3 small levels. Some of them were more talented, or rather had a deep foundation. It was even very possible for them to achieve a cultivation breakthrough across a large realm. Chapter 4198. Soon, the large number of survivors and experts who had remained outside the atmosphere of Mulberry G star all entered the interior of the planet within the atmosphere and began closed-door cultivation to break through. Yi Xian had just completed a breakthrough and still needed 1 or 2 hearty battles to stabilize his current realm. Therefore, he had no intention of continuing to cultivate and seek a breakthrough. The reason he was sitting in the cosmic void outside the atmosphere of Mulberry G star was partly to prevent the powerful army of ferocious beasts from the surrounding void from coming to disturb him. On the other hand, it was to prevent the allied forces of various races and rogue cultivators from the 3 main planes of the starry skies from passing through the light curtain and entering Mulberry G star directly from the dark, black hole-like void where he had come from. Although the dark void that was like a black hole was vast, it could be said to be boundless, and it was like this in all directions. Under such circumstances, the fleets of the 3 major starry skies that entered the dark void after him might not be able to find Yu Yi. At this time, Xianlai had passed through the same light curtain. However, this was more or less a possibility. He had to be on guard. However, he could not afford to waste this 1 month. Although he did not intend to cultivate, Yi Xian could use it to deduce the ancient demon ape bloodline ability, which was the 6th transformation of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape. Up until now, he had already comprehended the 5th transformation of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape. However, this was something that happened a long time ago. Although the further he progressed, the more complicated the derivation of each transformation would be, and the time required would also increase. However, the devouring system in his body had begun to deduce the 6th transformation of the demonic ape after completing the 5th transformation. According to Yi Xian's estimation, the mysteries of the 6th transformation should be deduced soon. Even if there was still a gap, as long as he settled his mind and began to deduce with the devouring system in his body, it should not be a problem for him to successfully deduce the 6th transformation of the devil ape before the start of the expedition in a month's time. After adjusting his state of mind, Yi Xian quickly calmed down and retrieved all kinds of data and information related to the 6th transformation of the devil ape from the devouring system in his body. He spent an entire 2 days to study it thoroughly, and then began the follow-up derivation with the devouring system in his body. When it came to data calculation and derivation, although he was still far inferior to the devouring system in his body, after all, the current Yi Xian was already an immortal old monster. His divine sense was so powerful that it made people's hair stand on end. With his assistance, the devouring system's derivation of the 6th transformation of the devil ape was completed in an instant. There was a huge improvement. Just like that, another dozen or so days passed before the systematic derivation of the core profundity of the 6th form of the devil ape was finally completed. At this moment, Yi Xian was overjoyed. Hearing the familiar system beep in his mind, he was in high spirits. He did not feel tired at all after 20 days of continuous derivation. Before this, the strength of his original body was at level 4 immortal realm. Once he activated the bloodline of the ancient demonic ape with 3 heads and 6 arms, his strength soared again, directly reaching level 5 immortal realm. If he performed the 9 demonic ape transformations and reached the 5th transformation, he would instantly reach level 1 Marquis immortal realm. But now, Yi Xian had already deduced the core profundity of the 6th transformation of the 9 demonic ape and completely mastered it. As long as he wanted to, He could activate the real body of the devil ape with 3 heads and 6 arms at any time. After entering the 6th transformation, not only would his body reach an unprecedented height of 10 million meters, which was 30 million meters, or 60,000 miles, which was comparable to a supergiant planet, but his strength would also soar again, reaching level 2 Marquis Immortal Realm. If one were to include the terrifying chi and blood energy contained within this terrifying star body that was 60,000 kilometers long, even if one didn't use the fallen sky bow and other supreme divine abilities and powerful treasures like the Shennon Cauldron, Yi Xian's true combat strength would still be able to reach the 6th or 7th level of the Marquis Immortal Realm, which was equivalent to an old monster at the late stage of this realm. The extent of this battle. I finally comprehended the 6th transformation of the 9 demonic ape transformations bloodline. Roar! Yi Xian forcefully activated the true body of the 3-headed, 6-armed devil ape, and directly entered the 6th transformation of the 9 transformations of the devil ape. Feeling the impulse of possessing the terrifying vitality of a 60,000-kilometer body, Yi Xian stood up from the mouth of the Shennon Cauldron that was filled with a 9-colored mist. At this moment, his chest was filled with boundless pride. This was because he had ordered the devouring system in his body to start deducing the core profundity of the 7th transformation of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape, as soon as the derivation of the core profundity of the 6th transformation was completed. It was as if he could already see himself comprehending the 7th transformation, the 8th transformation, and even the ultimate 9th transformation. Right now, he was only at the 6th transformation, but his devil ape true body could already reach 60,000 miles in size, which was comparable to a superstar. As for the 7th, 8th and 9th transformations, not only would each of them elevate his cultivation base by a minor stage, even the size of the devilish ape true body would increase by 10 times if there were no unforeseen circumstances. If that was really the case, the demonic ape size in the 9th change might not be comparable to the void behemoth tortoise at its peak, but it wouldn't be too far off even if it were to raise its claws. When he thought of the day when he would also be able to transform and become as large as a small part of the starry sky, Yi Xian's heart inexplicably throbbed with an indescribable feeling. For a long time, the void tortoise, whose body was so terrifying that a single claw was comparable to that of a star field, had always been the object of envy in his heart. But now, he finally saw the hope of possessing such a tyrannical body in the near future. How could he not be excited? Calculating the time, it had been 19 days since Yi Xian had started to deduce the 6th transformation of the 9 demonic ape transformations with a devouring system in his body. In other words, in the next 11 days, Yi Xian would officially begin his conquest of the starry sky forbidden zones around Mulberry Star. With anticipation, he quickly calmed down his excited mood. His figure flashed, and he once again returned to the mouth of the Farmer God Cauldron that was shrouded in 9-colored fog. He sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. In this last bit of time, Yi Xian did not intend to cultivate, nor did he intend to continue to deduce the core mysteries of the 7th transformation of the devil ape true body. It was still too early. In just 11 days, there would be no results. What he needed to do was to simply regulate his breathing. He needed to use these 11 days to completely calm down his emotions. Chapter 4199. Hiss. Hiss hiss. The 1-month deadline was up. Yi Xian opened his eyes, waved his hand, and put the Farmer God Cauldron into his undying world. His figure shot out, and just as he arrived outside the atmosphere of Xianxia Star, he heard a series of excited and fierce roars coming from the interior of Xianxia Star within the atmosphere. Obviously, the tens of millions of survivors of the primordial era in the 12 great tribes and thousands of villages of various sizes on Xianxia Star had all broken out of seclusion. This included Gue Hai Yi Dao, Song Qingyu, and the other 20,000 demon scouts who were also in seclusion to break through. Yi Xian stopped in his tracks and did not enter the atmosphere of Xianxia Star again. He still waited in the void 1,000,000 kilometers outside the atmosphere. Soon, small teams of demon dweller scouts entered the interior of Mulberry Ji Star to find a place to cultivate and break through. They passed through the atmosphere of Mulberry Ji Star one after another, and arrived in the void outside the atmosphere. There was no need to say anything, nor was there any chaos. After the demon scouts arrived and saw Yi Xian standing in the void 1,000,000 kilometers away, they immediately began to organize themselves in the void outside the atmosphere of Xianxia Star in an orderly manner. During this process, Yi Xian's gaze swept across the demon scouts who arrived one after another. Sensing the cultivation aura emanating from their bodies, a deep gratified smile immediately appeared on his face. Although a month's time was not long, for these 20,000 demon scouts who were originally well prepared, It was actually not a short period of time for them to enter seclusion for such a long time. In addition to the super strong effects of the light golden top-grade flesh medicine they had obtained, over the past month, the cultivation base and strength of the more than 20,000 demon experts had been greatly improved. As far as the eye could see, all the demon scouts were now at the 15th great realm of the starry sky, which was the existence above the universe realm. This was a powerful battle team formed by 20,000 almighty beings of the universe. Because they were extremely familiar with each other, their tacit understanding was even perfect. Once all of them went out to battle and entered the battlefield, the battle strength formed would definitely increase by several levels. Among the 20,000 demon cultivators above the universe realm, there were over 100 star lords and over 10 domain lords. These dozen or so domain masters included Ying Tai, Gui Hai Yi Dao, Cong Qingyu, Neibashan, Ba Chai, Li Mosquito, Zhuafeng Tai, and the others. They were all demon experts who had followed Yi Xian since the beginning. And now, because of this opportunity, they had all become domain masters. He believed that in the near future, among these 20,000 demon dweller scouts whose cultivation had all surpassed the universe realm, there would definitely be more and more Star Lord old monsters and Domain Lord old monsters. Among them, Gui Hai Yi Dao, Cong Qingyu, and the others were already the cream of the crop amongst the Domain Lords. Soon, they would most likely break through to the Sector Lord realm or even the universe realm. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, the expression on Yi Xian's face couldn't help but become excited once again. When he thought about how one day in the future, he would have an army of 20,000 Star Lords, Domain Lords, Realm Lords, and even Universe Lords, Yi Xian would have an army of 20,000 Star Lords. It was a feeling of blood boiling. All of this would probably be very difficult to achieve in a short time in the three main planes of the universe. However, here, there was a huge amount of ferocious beast materials, as well as the top-grade flesh medicine refined by the primordial survivors using alchemy techniques. Everything was possible. Rumble. Rumble. Just as Yi Xian was lost in thought, the atmosphere of Xianxia star in front of him surged. Battleships flew out from the interior of the star one after another. There were all kinds of shapes and sizes, forming a large black mass. This time, the tens of millions of ancient survivors on Xianxia star were all mobilized. Although some of the survivors of the primordial era were not combatants, and there were even some elderly, women, and children among them, there was no doubt that all of them had entered the battleships of various sizes. Even the resources and personal belongings of the strongholds had all been taken care of. They carried everything with them. This was completely a rhythm that didn't matter even if they didn't come back after going out on an expedition. Actually, this was very normal. The few tens of millions of survivors of the primordial era on Mulberry Tree had been trapped within the various restricted areas in the surroundings, and they'd been trapped within this expanse of space for countless years. Now that they had submitted to such a powerful master like Yi Xian, there was no doubt that he had the strength to lead them out. Since this was the case, naturally no one was willing to stay here any longer. However, Yi Xian didn't think that way. It was impossible for him to sweep through all of the forbidden areas in the surrounding space at once, so he could only exterminate them one by one. Since that was the case, after the battle, he would definitely need to return to rest and digest what he had obtained. Thus, the significance of Mulberry Star as a base for the rear wouldn't completely disappear in a short time. However, for the first expedition, for safety reasons, it was good to bring all the non-combatants along. This was to prevent these fellows from worrying about their clansmen on Mulberry Star while they were fighting at the front. What surprised Yi Xian was that as the tens of millions of primordial survivors rushed out of Mulberry Star, the dozen or so Realm Lord old freaks quickly swarmed over and gathered in front of Yi Xian. In just a month, these fellows had all broken through from the Realm Lord grade to the Universe grade and were all old freaks of the universe. In fact, they were not the only universe monsters like this. There were more than 40 universe monsters on Xianxia planet. There were even more Realm Lords, Domain Lords, and Star Lords below the universe grade. In general, the emergence of powerhouses among the tens of millions of primordial survivors on Mulberry Star had been like a geyser. This was clearly the result of their many years of accumulation. My first target for this expedition is to the northwest of Mulberry Star. This forbidden space is more than 70 million miles away from Mulberry Star. When all the tens of millions of primordial survivors on Mulberry Star had arrived and gathered outside the star's atmosphere, Yi Xian scanned the surroundings. Following which, he confirmed the target of the first expedition. There were originally 4 sempiternal realm ferocious beasts in this forbidden space. However, 2 of them led an army of 1 million ferocious beasts to invade this place a month ago, and all of them were annihilated. Right now, there are still 2 immortal-grade beasts in this forbidden space. In addition, there are about 10 million beasts below the immortal grade. Chapter 4200. Rumble. Boom. With Yi Xian's order, the giant fortress of life on the wild dragon battleship that was as large as a planet opened up one floor in an instant. The entire life fortress had a total of more than 10 levels, and the space inside was too vast. However, right now, Yi Xian had only opened up one of the levels, which was located in the middle. Just these 3 levels were enough to accommodate the various types of battleships that the tens of millions of primordial era survivors were controlling. It took half a day for all the battleships to enter the giant fortress of life. Gue Hai Yi Dao, Song Qingyu, and the 20,000 demon scouts had already entered the giant fortress of life. Whoosh! When everything was ready, Yi Xian entered the core command cabin of the wild dragon battleship in a flash. With the order given, the giant fortress of life as large as a planet opened up its kinetic energy cabin and turned into a ray of light that shot toward its destination several thousand miles northwest of the Mulberry battleship. And left. More than 70 million miles northwest of the Mulberry battleship, there used to be 4 immortal realm ferocious beasts in the forbidden land of stars. However, 2 of them had led an army of 1 million ferocious beasts to the Mulberry battleship a month ago and died in the Mulberry battleship. Now, there were only 2 immortal realm ferocious beasts left in the forbidden land of stars. In addition, there were nearly 10 million ferocious beasts below the immortal realm. The 2 immortal realm ferocious beasts were both at the middle stage of the immortal realm. One was at the 4th stage of the immortal realm, while the other was at the 6th stage of the immortal realm. Once Yi Xian activated the demonic ape bloodline in his body and entered the 6th transformation of the 9 demonic ape transformations, he would be able to destroy them with just 2 punches. Even if he asked the flying centipede and old monster Silverpole to attack, they would be able to end the battle in a short time. After a month of cultivation, the flying centipede had reached the 8th stage of the immortal realm. Even old monster Silverpole had reached the 3rd stage of the immortal realm. If the 2 of them worked together, they would be able to easily crush the 2 ferocious beasts. In fact, the ferocious beasts in the forbidden land of stars, including the 2 immortal realm ferocious beasts, were having a hard time. To be more precise, it was the same for all the ferocious beasts in the 6 forbidden zones around Mulberry Tree. A month ago, the sea of space beasts within these 6 forbidden lands all felt a powerful energy that made them tremble. It belonged to an official level undying, and it clearly dispersed from the center of these forbidden lands. This was also something that Yi Xian had done on purpose. He didn't want some ferocious beasts from the surrounding forbidden lands to come and cause trouble during this 1 month of seclusion. His purpose was only to deter this group of fellows, but in fact, the effect of the intimidation was absolutely amazing. It was to the extent that among the countless ferocious beasts in the 6 forbidden areas of the starry sky, even those powerful ferocious beasts at the immortal realm were terrified all day long. Especially the forbidden area in the northwest, not only were there only 2 undying beasts left, their strength was greatly reduced. A month ago, they even sent out an army of 1 million beasts, led by 2 undying beasts, heading towards the source of the official level undying energy. This remnant star was rushing towards them. They didn't understand why the remnant star, which had always been weak, suddenly had the terrifying aura of an official level undying, but it was too late now. These 2 undying beasts didn't think of escaping, but on one hand, the enemy hadn't attacked yet, and they weren't willing to give up their nest. On the other hand, in the distant void behind them, there was another even more powerful forbidden area. Even if they escaped, they couldn't break through it. In the end, they were still trapped in this void. Because of this, these 2 undying beasts gritted their teeth and braced themselves to stay. They secretly prayed that the official level undying wouldn't come. But all of this was just wishful thinking. For the Longyi battleship, it would only take the time of a cup of tea to cross the distance of 70 million miles in space. Due to the wild dragon ship arriving too quickly, the 2 immortal rank beasts in the forbidden space in the northwest corner of Mulberry G Star couldn't escape even if they wanted to. Hong long long. All battleships move out. Kill without mercy. As the huge kinetic energy cabin roared, the wild dragon star fortress arrived in this corner of the void and hovered above this forbidden space. Immediately after, following Yi Xian's light shout, all of the enormous cabin doors on the level that contained the million battleships of Mulberry Tree instantly opened. One after another, starry sky battleships of all shapes and sizes rumbled out, directly charging towards the forbidden area of the starry sky below. In addition, The two demon scout troops led by Gue Hai Yi Dao and Song Qingyu also arrived by crossing the void with their bodies. These two groups of 10,000 demon dweller scouts did not split up. After all, the individual combat strength of the demon dweller scouts was not very strong. If they were to split up and fight separately, the losses would obviously be extremely great. These were all the forces under his command. Yi Xian wasn't willing to accept the fall of any of the demon cultivator scouts. In this battle, the two groups of 10,000 demon scouts were gathered together, forming a powerful star battle formation. They cooperated with each other, twisting their strength together and pouncing towards the forbidden land of stars below. Hong long long. Hong! This corner of the universe, which was originally quite peaceful, was boiling in an instant. Roars and roars resounded throughout the entire vast void. This forbidden area was located in the northwest corner of Mulberry Ji Star. It was actually a cosmic void like any other place. In this area, there were more than a dozen life-bearing planets crowded together in a void that was tens of millions of kilometers in circumference. All kinds of ferocious space beasts lived on these dozen life planets. They helped each other and formed a large regional force. That was why this forbidden area of the starry sky was formed. Today, the army of 1,000,000 battleships from Mulberry Ji Star and the two demon scout squads led by Gue Hai Yi Dao and Song Qingyu respectively charged towards the dozen or so planets full of space beasts. The war began like a raging fire from the very beginning. Roar! Yi Xian also charged out of the life fortress at the first moment. He directly activated the demonic ape bloodline and entered the fifth transformation of the demonic ape. A terrifying ape that was more than 1,000,000 zhang tall appeared in the void. Chapter 4201. With one punch, he destroyed a powerful immortal realm ferocious beast in an instant. This powerful immortal realm ferocious beast had just shot up into the sky from one of the more than a dozen life stars. No one knew whether it wanted to escape immediately or rush out to fight to the death. But all of this was no longer important, because it had been completely turned into one by Yi Xian's punch. A bloody mist spread out in the void. At this moment, the entire void of the universe fell into a strange silence. Whether it was the tens of millions of ferocious beasts in this forbidden land of the starry sky, the tens of millions of survivors in the millions of battleships that had just rushed out of the Longya Star Fortress, or the scouts led by Gue Hai Yi Dao and Song Qingyu, 20,000 demon dweller scouts. Everyone, without exception, sucked in a cold breath. They didn't even get a good look at the appearance of this immortal realm ferocious beast commander, and what kind of bloodline it had. Everything was over so quickly. This was an instant kill. No, even an instant kill was not enough to describe it. Everything happened so fast that it made one's hair stand on end. Roar! On this side, this powerful immortal realm ferocious beast that they couldn't even see clearly had just been smashed into a bloody mist by Yi Xian from 1,000,000 miles away. The bloody mist quickly spread out in the void. On another life star more than 1,000,000 miles away, another ferocious beast with an astonishing aura roared out in an instant. This was another powerful immortal realm ferocious beast, and it was the most powerful one among them. It was at level 6 of the immortal realm, which was the peak of the middle stage of the immortal realm. With one more small stage, it would enter the late stage of the immortal realm. At this moment, this powerful level 6 of the immortal realm ferocious beast let out an earth-shattering roar, which clearly revealed its monstrous anger and madness. There were only two powerful immortal realm ferocious beasts left in this forbidden land of the starry sky. One of them was killed in the blink of an eye. Now, it was the only one left. Moreover, with the opponent's terrifying strength, it obviously wouldn't be able to hold on for long and would be destroyed soon. It was very likely that the result would be the same. Instant kill. After all, the strength displayed by the three-headed and six-armed primordial ape demons had clearly reached the marquee realm of the immortal realm. With his cultivation at the middle stage of the immortal realm, it was impossible for him to resist it. It was certain that he would be killed easily. Because of this, knowing that he was going to die, this powerful ferocious beast at the peak of the middle stage of the immortal realm completely threw all caution to the wind. Its ferocious nature was aroused. Since it was going to die anyway, it might as well grit its teeth and fight. Maybe it could even injure its opponent a little. With this kind of decisiveness, the middle stage of the immortal stage ferocious beast didn't charge out of the life planet after letting out this furious roar. Instead, it directly teleported and locked onto Yi Xian's location. In the blink of an eye, it was already in front of him. This was a giant earth bear with a body of about 100,000 feet. Its fur was bluish-gray and emitted a faint bloody aura. At first glance, one could tell that it was an extremely violent existence. In fact, this was indeed the case. Now, under the situation where he knew that he was going to die, the reason why this great earth bear, who was at the 6th level of the immortal realm, directly teleported from the interior of the life planet, traversing over 1,000,000 kilometers of space, and arrived at Xianxia's side at lightning speed it was because its only purpose was to self-detonate. Its opponent was too powerful. With the terrifying strength of a marquee realm of the immortal realm, it had no chance of winning at all. Only by self-detonating at all costs could it win a little bit of dignity for its death, the dignity that belonged to an immortal realm expert. In fact, the gigantic earthen bear was well aware that even if it self-detonated at such a close distance, it would still not be able to kill the opponent directly with the boundless vital energy and blood in the opponent's powerful physical body that was 1,000,000 feet in size. Even serious injuries were an extravagant hope. At most, it would be some light injuries, which were slightly better than superficial wounds. All of this made it feel helpless, but it was powerless to change anything. An ordinary immortal realm expert facing an immortal realm expert was, in fact, no different from an ant facing a ferocious beast. Everything it was doing now was to make a final struggle after knowing that it was going to die. It wanted to lessen the unwillingness in its heart and show more of its dignity as an immortal realm ferocious beast before its death. Unfortunately, Xian would not give it this chance. Compared to him, who was millions of meters tall, this giant earth bear, which was only tens of thousands of meters tall, would only be able to cause Xian a bit of damage even if it were to self-destruct from a distance of less than 10,000 kilometers away from him. It would only be slightly embarrassing and close to injuring Xian. But, since he had the ability to stop all of this, why would he give his opponent the chance to provoke and blaspheme him? Self-detonation? You seem to be a little too naive. In the next instant, the great earth bear, which was at the 6th level of the immortal realm, teleported across more than 1,000,000 kilometers of space and appeared less than 10,000 kilometers away from Xian. From the mouth of the ancient demon ape, which was nearly 10,000 kilometers away, came a voice transmission. It was a sentence that was obviously filled with mockery. Xiao. The next moment, as the ancient demon ape waved its hand, a huge cauldron as big as a star appeared in front of its huge body in the blink of an eye. Boom! At the same time, in the void thousands of miles away, the giant earth bear directly detonated its divine soul and body, turning into a bloody mist with a violent aura. Like a hurricane, it swept towards Xian. Phew! In the face of all this, the ancient demon ape did not even flinch. With a mocking and even disdainful smile on its face, it waved its hand. From the star cauldron in front of it, a brilliant rainbow flame swept out in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, it collided with the violent energy that was roaring towards it. When they collided, there was no earth-shattering explosion, nor was there any endlessly raging energy. The terrifying hurricane-like energy formed by the explosion of the giant earthen bear's spirit and physical body was enveloped by the rainbow flames that were heading towards them. In an instant, it was under some kind of unknown and mysterious might. Under the influence of the rainbow flame, it was rapidly compressed. After 3 short breaths of time, the boundless flesh and blood energy completely dissipated. The rainbow flame that had shot out also circled in the air for a while before turning around and rushing back into the Shenong cauldron, disappearing from the mouth of the cauldron that was shrouded in rainbow mist. Chapter 4202. Blood Essence? Good stuff indeed. Xian muttered to himself as he looked at the crimson bead the size of a baby's fist in his right palm. He praised it softly with a satisfied look on his face. This was the first time he had refined a blood essence. Ever since the Shenong unusual flame was upgraded to the 7-colored flame, Xian's control of the Shenong cauldron's power had reached a new height. Since then, he had been able to control the Shenong 7-colored flame and directly refine some powerful fierce beasts into a blood essence. All the condensed blood essence contained all the vital energy of the ferocious beast that was refined. It could be said to be extremely precious. Moreover, this blood essence could be swallowed directly. It was very beneficial for improving one's cultivation and restoring one's strength. However, fierce beasts below the immortal realm were basically worthless to be refined. This was because fierce beasts below the immortal realm had a lot of impurities in their qi and blood essences. After being refined by the Shenong 7-colored flame, the impurities would be removed and only the essences would be left. It was also of little value. In other words, it was best to use powerful fierce beasts above the immortal realm as raw materials to refine a blood essence. Before this, Xian's own cultivation was too weak. Even if he activated the demonic ape bloodline in his body and directly entered the 5th transformation of the demonic ape, he would only be at the peak of the 9th step of the immortal stage. It was almost unrealistic to control the Shenong 7-colored flame and refine a supreme fierce beast at the immortal realm into a blood essence without resistance. But now, he had only used the 5th transformation of the 9 transformation of demonic ape, and he already had the strength of a first-level immortal marquis. If he only used the Shenong 7-colored flame to refine an ordinary immortal rank beast, he wouldn't dare to say it was easy, but he would definitely succeed. The reason why Yi Xian didn't refine the immortal rank ferocious beast was because refining blood essence wasn't something that could be done in a short period of time. It required a certain amount of time. Now that they were in the middle of a war, Yi Xian wasn't in the mood to refine blood essence. However, the immortal rank ferocious beast behind him self-destructed. Its originally sturdy ferocious beast body directly turned into a cloud of blood mist energy, eliminating the many steps that Yi Xian had to go through to refine the blood essence. Almost immediately after the Shenong 7-colored flame enveloped the cloud of blood mist energy, the refinement was completed. Since that was the case, he naturally wouldn't let it go so easily. With a thought, he obtained an immortal-level fierce beast blood essence that contained boundless vital energy. If that self-destructing immortal rank ferocious beast knew that this was the result, even if it had already fallen, it wouldn't be able to rest in peace. At this point, the 2 immortal-level ferocious beasts in this forbidden space had been completely annihilated. Although there were still tens of millions of ferocious beasts left, and there were even a few dozen universe-level existences among them, Yi Xian had no intention of making another move. Swish! Swish! With a thought, 10 figures were sent out from the Shenong cauldron. They were none other than the flying centipede, old monster Silver Ji, and the 8 great guardian deities, who had all grown into Star Lords after breaking through in the past month. I'll leave the universe-level ferocious beasts to the 2 of you to deal with. Remember, don't kill them all. Give a few of them to the universe-level ferocious beasts on Xianxia Star. With a step, Yi Xian turned around and went to the mouth of the Shenong cauldron, which was enshrouded in 9-colored mist, and sat down cross-legged. At the same time, he turned his head to look at the flying centipede and old monster Silver Ji, who had just rushed out of the Shenong cauldron, and gave an order. As for the 8 great guardian deities, he couldn't be bothered with them at all. These guys wouldn't be separated easily, but with their intelligence, they could naturally guess that the only reason Yi Xian sent them out of the Shenong cauldron was to let them participate in the great battle and find ferocious beasts with similar cultivation and strength. This was weapon refinement. Roar! Screech! In the next instant, the flying centipede and old monster Silver Ji raised their heads and let out a furious roar. In an instant, they turned into 2 streaks of light and rushed toward the great battle ahead. To them, just dealing with a few hundred universe-grade ferocious beasts was like a piece of cake. This was simply a one-sided slaughter. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it had only been less than half an hour since Yi Xian had killed the first immortal-grade ferocious beast. A large number of ferocious beasts roared as they rushed out of the planet's atmosphere on the dozen or so vital planets in the distant void ahead. From this moment on, the real tragic battle could be considered to be in full swing. However, to Yi Xian, the outcome of this bloody battle was already without any suspense. In this starry sky danger zone, only 2 immortal-grade ferocious beasts were left. No matter how many ferocious beasts there were, they definitely wouldn't be able to cause too much of a stir. Rumble! Boom! Screech! Roar! In the void, earth-shattering explosions rang out one after another. The entire vast void was in an uproar. From time to time, various kinds of angry roars, ferocious roars and vicious howls could be heard, shaking the heavens. For the tens of millions of ferocious beasts on the dozen or so vital planets in the starry sky danger zone, this battle was a bloody one of extinction. But to the 20,000 demon scouts led by Gue Hai Yi Dao and Song Qingyu, as well as the tens of millions of primordial survivors in the thousands of mountain villages on Mulberry Ji, this battle was merely a battle to refine weapons that made one's heart surge with excitement. Yi Xian didn't pay too much attention to it. After the time it took to eat a meal, he retracted his gaze and looked at the blood-colored bead the size of an infant's fist that he had been holding in his right palm all this time. This tiny blood essence contains all the blood and energy of an immortal-rank ferocious beast. Moreover, it has been purified and refined by the Shenong 7-colored flame, removing the impurities and preserving the essences. Looking at the blood essence in his hand, Yi Xian's eyes emitted strands of light as he muttered to himself, "This kind of thing, even this Star Lord has only condensed it for the first time." I just don't know what its effects are. However, it's the vital energy of an immortal-grade ferocious beast after all. In addition, this is the first time I've consumed something like this. The effect should be even more obvious. Therefore, if nothing unexpected happens, this blood essence should be very likely to allow my cultivation strength to break through again. Thinking of this, Yi Xian no longer hesitated. His eyes flashed again as he directly threw the blood essence into his mouth. He didn't taste anything at all. In the blink of an eye, it entered his stomach and turned into a scorching energy that rapidly circulated in his limbs and bones. Chapter 4203. Walala. As the effect of the blood essence spread out, it turned into a blazing energy river that surged through Yi Xian's body. Instantly, the sound of chains rattling could be heard in his mind. These chains were the shackles of human potential that limited his growth and evolution. Every time one of them was torn apart, it meant that Yi Xian's cultivation level would increase to a certain extent. The shackles of human potential also varied in size. Every time he took the gene culture fluid and broke through the bottleneck of a major realm, he would encounter and eventually be torn apart by the huge shackles. And if it was only a small breakthrough within the same realm, then what one would encounter and ultimately be torn apart would be the smaller shackles of the human body. At this moment, as the effect of the blood essence spread out, it turned into a blazing energy river that surged through Yi Xian's body. What appeared in Yi Xian's body was clearly a smaller shackle of human potential. If this shackle of human potential was broken, his cultivation level would increase again and he would break through a minor realm. The whole process was undoubtedly painful. However, Yi Xian was already used to this kind of pain. It was nothing to him. He immersed his mind and spirit in it. With the profound meaning of the ancient Dongshu tactics, he activated the blazing energy river in his body. It flowed along his meridians and carried out great circulations one after another. Every time a great circulations was completed, the small shackle of human potential in his body became weaker. After an entire 49 cycles, a loud clanging sound suddenly sounded out in Yi Xian's mind. At this moment, the scorching energy that had been surging through the 100 meridians in his body was completely exhausted. The next moment, Yi Xian opened his eyes. In his mind, the familiar sound of the system notification rang out. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu tactics. Current realm. Level 5 of the immortal realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the physical body's qi and blood. Current realm. Level 5 of the immortal realm. Before this, his original body's strength had been at the sempiternal realm 4th order. However, once he activated the ancient demonic ape bloodline, his strength shot up to the sempiternal realm 5th order. If he could use the 9 demon ape transformations and reach the 6th transformation, he would instantly reach rank 2 Marquis Immortal. And now, with his cultivation base breaking through, Yi Xian could activate the demon ape bloodline in his body and enter the 6th transformation of the demon ape. At that time, his peak battle strength would reach rank 3 Marquis Immortal Realm. He was already at the peak of early Marquis Immortal Realm. He only needed one more minor breakthrough to enter the middle Marquis Immortal Realm. A single drop of blood essence allowed me to break through a small stage. This kind of good news is simply too unbelievable. Yi Xian was extremely excited when he felt the strength in his body increase significantly. He clenched his fists tightly as he muttered to himself. This time, he was in a hurry to cultivate in seclusion at the edge of the battlefield of the land of conquest. On the surface, he seemed to be a little impatient, but in fact, the reason why he did so was just to test the effect of this blood essence. This result was of great importance. If the blood essence's effect was extraordinary, Yi Xian would not hesitate to capture any immortal realm fierce beasts he encountered in the forbidden lands of the starry sky in the following battles. He would either blast them into a cloud of blood mist and refine them into blood essence on the spot. If the effect was disappointing, there was no need for him to do so in the following battles. It was a thankless and meaningless task. But now, it seemed that he was very satisfied with the result. Although it was very likely that this was the first time he had consumed this kind of blood essence, so the effect was very obvious. Even so, the heaven-defying effect of the blood essence could basically be confirmed. After all, this was the compressed form of all the qi and blood in the body of an immortal realm fierce beast after being refined by the Shenong 7-colored flame. Even if the effect would be affected if he consumed too much in the future, there would still be a bottom line no matter how bad it was. In short, this blood essence was definitely a good thing. Even if it took a lot of strength to refine one, it was worth it. Roar. Screech. Rumble. In the distant battlefield in the void, angry roars and roars could still be heard from time to time. There were even earth-shattering explosions, but compared to when Yi Xian closed his eyes and began his closed-door training, it was obviously much rarer. During this closed-door training, he used the profound meaning of the ancient cave void formula to drive the blazing river of energy that was formed after the blood essence was dissolved in his body. The river of energy circulated in his meridians for 49 cycles, which took him nearly an entire day. After a day, this originally one-sided starry sky battle had basically entered the stage where it was about to come to an end. Looking around, the battlefield in the void was a sea of light and fire. There were corpses and remains of fierce beasts everywhere. Of course, there were also some corpses of the Desolation survivors scattered around. Whether it was Yi Xian or the tens of millions of Desolation survivors on Mulberry Star, they had long been mentally prepared for this. In a starry sky battle of this level, even if one side had an overwhelming battle strength, it was inevitable that there would be casualties. It could even be said that if there were no casualties, it would not be able to achieve the true effect of refining weapons. A group of iron-blooded lions could only grow rapidly in the test of blood and fire. However, even though there were quite a number of survivors from the Antiquity era who had perished, it was definitely not a large number. At most, there were only a few tens of thousands of them. Compared to the tens of millions of ferocious beasts that had almost been completely annihilated, such a small amount of losses was practically negligible. However, the 20,000 demon dweller scouts led by Guihai Yi Dao and Xianxia had not lost a single one in this battle. On one hand, this was because the 20,000 demon dweller scouts had always been gathered together, helping each other and forming a battle formation that they had long been familiar with to kill the enemy. On the other hand, it was also because of the special care of the flying centipede and old monster Xianxia. These two old men clearly knew that these 20,000 demon dweller scouts were old men who had followed Yi Xian for a long time. Naturally, they would not watch any of them die at the hands of the fierce beasts. Of course, this did not mean that these two old men did not care about the Desolation survivors. The key was that there were too many Desolation survivors. There were tens of millions of them, and there were even more than 1 million battle arcs. How could the two of them take care of so many Desolation survivors? Half a day later, the last ferocious beast was killed. The void was completely silent. The roar of the ferocious beast could no longer be heard. At this point, the tens of millions of fierce beasts in the starry sky forbidden area had been completely wiped out without exception. Chapter 4204. The battle lasted only a day before it was completely over. Tens of millions of ferocious beasts in the dozen or so habitable planets in this forbidden space were completely annihilated. Yi Xian didn't interfere with the cleanup work after the battle. He didn't even pay attention to his original subordinates. The flying centipede, old monster Xianxia, and the 8 great Vajras immediately rushed back into the farmer god cauldron. They still had plenty of top-grade flesh and blood medicines, so compared to the boring battle, they were more interested in cultivating in seclusion in the cauldron and making breakthroughs in their cultivation. Even Guihai Yi Dao, Xianxia, and the 20,000 demon scouts under their command did the same. After the final battle, they immediately rushed back to the vital fortress and seized the time to cultivate. On the one hand, they wanted to continue their cultivation, and on the other, they wanted to digest the results of the battle. What they obtained. The task of cleaning up the battlefield fell to the tens of millions of primordial survivors led by the 20 to 30 old monsters of the universe. In fact, all the survivors of the primordial era were in favor of this matter. More than 10 million star beasts had been killed in this battle, and all of them were relatively powerful elite beasts. For the tens of millions of survivors of the primordial era on Mulberry Tree, such a bountiful harvest was absolutely unprecedented. It had never happened before. Generally speaking, even if the 12 tribes had thousands of mountain villages of various sizes and sent out a large number of elite forces to join forces and charge out of Mulberry Tree for a large-scale space hunt, the number of ferocious beast corpses they could harvest was usually between 1 and 2 million. The most they'd managed to harvest was close to 3 million, but the quality was slightly lacking. But this time, more than 10 million elite beasts had been completely wiped out, leaving only the corpses of the primordial beasts that they coveted. For the tens of millions of primordial survivors on Mulberry Tree, the ultimate goal of the previous battle and bloodshed was to reap the rewards of this moment. Therefore, compared to the previous bloody battle, the current work of wrapping up the battlefield was actually more exciting and exciting. As far as the eye could see, the desolate survivors of Mulberry Orchid Star could be seen bustling among the remains of enormous beasts in the vast expanse of space occupied by the more than a dozen planets with life. Perhaps these guys were too excited and had never encountered such a bountiful harvest before. While cleaning up this huge void battlefield, they would occasionally let out loud and long wolf howls or roar out the majestic battle song of the remnants. If one had to describe this scene in one sentence, perhaps it would be, every one of them looks like they've been injected with chicken blood. That was the most appropriate description. The cleanup work lasted more than half a day. During this process, tens of millions of primordial survivors were busy and happy. To them, this was definitely a kind of enjoyment and not hard work. In the end, even Xianxia was extremely impatient. He rolled his eyes and urged them to finish their work quickly. Only then did the speed and efficiency of collecting the spoils of war quickly increase. Tens of millions of primordial survivors worked together at the same time. In just 2 hours, they had collected all the corpses of the fierce beasts in the void into their storage magic treasures. At this point, this forbidden area of the starry sky had been completely wiped out. Not even a corpse of a fierce beast was left behind. In less than 2 days, in the blink of an eye, one of the 6 forbidden lands of the starry sky that surrounded the Mulberry Star and trapped the tens of millions of survivors of the desolation era in this galaxy that spanned hundreds of millions of miles was gone. There were still 5 forbidden areas of the starry sky left. Xianxia decided to deal with 1 or 2 more forbidden areas of the starry sky in one go. Although he had collected tens of millions of corpses of fierce beasts this time, which was enough for the primordial survivors of the 12 tribes on Mulberry Tree to refine several furnaces of blood and flesh medicine in each of the thousands of villages of various sizes on Mulberry Tree. But all this could not enter Xianxia's eyes. Although these tens of millions of corpses of fierce beasts were a lot, their quality was so poor that they were useless to him. On the contrary, the blood essence that he had condensed before was quite interesting to him. It could even be said that his heart was a little restless and he could not restrain himself. Of the remaining 5 forbidden areas of the starry sky, the one closest to the one that had just been wiped out was located in the void on the right side, about 70 to 80 million kilometers away. With the maximum speed of the long starry sky fortress, it could be reached in the time it takes to eat a meal. What made Xianxia speechless was that after he decided to attack this forbidden area of the starry sky and gave the order to board the ship at the first possible moment, it took more than 2 hours for the millions of battleships driven by the survivors of Mulberry Tree to enter the long starry sky fortress one after another. With this time, he could have made a round trip from that forbidden area of the starry sky. But this could not be helped. Since he was going to refine his army, he had to bring a large number of troops with him. It was impossible for him to go into battle alone, so it was inevitable that he would spend some time on these minor details. 2 hours later, all the battleships of the survivors had entered the long starry sky fortress. Xianxia followed closely behind and stepped into the core command cabin of the fortress. Then, following his order, the long starry sky fortress turned into a dim stream of light and accelerated. It shot towards the second target 70 to 80 million kilometers away. After the time it takes to eat a meal, a new bloody war in the starry sky would begin. At this time, Xianxia had activated the demon ape bloodline in his body, revealing the true form of the 3-head 6-arms demon ape, and directly entering the 5th transformation of the 9 transformations demon ape, which gave him the strength of a first-order marquis immortal. At this time, he had already spread out his divine sense and made a simple investigation of the forbidden areas around Mulberry Tree. He had already investigated them. Among them was the forbidden area of the starry sky that the long starry sky fortress was heading towards. In general, the overall strength of this forbidden area was about the same as that of the forbidden area of the starry sky that had just been destroyed. There were only a dozen planets with life, which were gathered in a corner of the universe. They were not far from each other, and the number of ferocious beasts living on these dozen planets was more than 10 million. However, in this forbidden area, there were a total of 5 immortal-level ferocious beasts. The weakest one was only at first-order immortal level, while the strongest one was at 8th-order immortal level, which was about the same strength as the flying centipede who had just broken through. If it were any other race or force, suddenly attacking such a powerful forbidden area of the starry sky, and facing 5 immortal-level ferocious beasts at the same time would be very stressful. Chapter 4205. As for the fact that there was a forbidden land tens of millions of miles away that had been completely wiped out by the primordial survivors of Xianxia Star, the remaining 5 all knew about it long ago. This battle had caused such a huge commotion, it was impossible to hide it. Moreover, The one who led the tens of millions of Desolation survivors on Xianxia star to accomplish this feat was a supreme being with the cultivation base of a marquis. This was something that the higher-ups of the remaining 5 forbidden lands were also well aware of. Originally, they didn't care about the tens of millions of Desolation survivors on Xianxia star. Although there were quite a number of Desolation survivors on this star, there were at least tens of millions of them. But before this, the strongest was only at the Sector Lord realm. Even the Sector Lord old monsters were only at the Sector Lord realm. Over a dozen. For the 6 great starry sky forbidden zones that had immortal-level ferocious beasts guarding the 6 surrounding areas, and there was more than one of them, this level of power was not worth their attention at all. They could just casually send one of their universe-level ferocious beasts to destroy it. In fact, the reason why the higher-ups of the 6 forbidden zones had not made a move on the primordial remnant on Mulberry Tree for so many years was because they wanted to wait for the primordial remnant to grow to a population of at least a few hundred million before making a move. Simply put, they were just rearing them. However, what the upper echelons of the Forbidden Lands didn't expect was that the Xianxia star that they viewed as a breeding ground for their prey would suddenly appear out of nowhere. A terrifying official-level undying that made them tremble in fear appeared out of nowhere. When they first sensed the powerful spirit energy of this official-level undying, many of the upper echelons of the 6 Forbidden Lands even had thoughts of fleeing out of fear. But this was obviously unrealistic, because in the wider cosmic void behind them, there were still Forbidden Lands in the starry sky that were more powerful overall, and even the tribes of the survivors. These space Forbidden Lands and tribes all had official-level undyings. There were even Emperor-level undyings in some tribes and Forbidden Lands. To put it bluntly, the leaders of the ferocious beasts in the 6 forbidden areas of space were actually just dwelling in this corner of the universe. However, compared to the tribes of the survivors of Mulberry G star who were surrounded by them in the central territory and were imperceptibly sealed, the space and range of their activities were much wider. That was all. This ancient fragment of the desolate era was too vast. The high-level beasts in the 6 forbidden lands were only at the immortal realm. They were far from being able to roam freely in this fragment of the void, even if they were just wandering around. Under such circumstances, facing this originally peaceful and secluded area, the sudden appearance of this official-level undying, since they couldn't turn and flee, their only choice was to stay and fight to the death. However, none of the 6 forbidden lands were a match for this mysterious marquis official-level undying. Against such a powerful being, they had almost no chance of resisting. The moment they started fighting, within a short period of time, all of the Forbidden Lands could only be considered as one of them. That was the end result. This was proven by the facts. In just a day's time, one of the 6 forbidden grounds was destroyed, leaving only 5 of them left. To these 5 remaining Forbidden Lands, if they wanted to survive the war of this powerful official-level undying, their only chance of survival was to work together. Any single Forbidden Land couldn't fight against an official-level undying. Only if the 5 of them worked together, with more than 20 normal official-level undyings attacking at the same time, they might be able to fight for a chance of survival. This was something the immortal-rank ferocious beast higher-ups in the 5 forbidden star zones understood when they learned that one of the forbidden star zones had been completely destroyed. In an instant, the immortal-rank upper echelons of the 5 forbidden lands of stars started a discussion immediately. The purpose of the discussion was to determine which forbidden land of stars would be the final battlefield for the final battle with the other party. Unfortunately, before this negotiation could reach a conclusion, the undying marquis who had just annihilated a forbidden area of the starry sky had already arrived at the second forbidden area of the starry sky with the tens of millions of people under his command at lightning speed. All of this caught the immortal-rank ferocious beasts of the 5 forbidden zones off guard. They originally thought that this army of survivors would at least return to Mulberry G star to rest for a while before launching a follow-up expedition. They didn't expect everything to happen so quickly. On the other side, it was only half a day after the annihilation of the first forbidden land, and a huge battleship the size of a small star had already arrived above the second forbidden land. The ongoing negotiations were immediately interrupted. The other 4 immortal-level beasts' upper echelons didn't hesitate to abandon the second forbidden area that Xianxia had set his eyes on. The original alliance of the 5 forbidden lands became the current alliance of the 4 forbidden lands. Moreover, before the bloody battle in the second forbidden area had begun, the tens of millions of ferocious beasts in the other 4 forbidden areas had already begun to move. All of them came out of their nests and rushed towards the agreed location of the final battle. Xianxia didn't know about all this, and he didn't care. In this area, he had the battle strength of an official-level undying, and he was already equivalent to a unique supreme overlord. In the face of absolute crushing power, all struggles and conspiracies were futile. Although there was no way to escape, and even the other 4 forbidden lands in the starry sky that originally wanted to ally with them had abandoned them without hesitation. However, the tens of millions of fierce beasts in this forbidden land still didn't intend to give up the battle and surrender. In fact, they also knew that even if they gave up the battle and surrendered, they would still end up being slaughtered one by one. This was because the tens of millions of people of the desolation on Xianxia star needed the flesh and blood of these fierce beasts. They had been doing this for a long time. They had been in the void, hunting the wandering fierce beasts that didn't belong to the 6 forbidden lands. In other words, no matter what, the result of this battle would be complete annihilation. In this case, instead of humiliating themselves by surrendering without a battle, it was better to show their courage and fight to the death with their opponents. Chapter 4206. Boom! Rumble. An earth-shattering roar reverberated in the void. As soon as they arrived, the hatch of the Long Yi Star Life Fortress was immediately opened. Tens of millions of survivors of the desolate ancient era in thousands of mountain villages of various sizes on the Mulberry Ji Star mobilized all of them, driving more than 1 million battleships of various types, and rushed out of the Star Fortress with awe-inspiring fighting spirit. They were charging toward the army of millions of beasts that had formed up in the void. The 20,000 demon scouts led by Gue Hai Yi Dao and Song Qingyu, including Ying Tai, had all charged out of the Star Fortress. They maintained their original battle formation and swept forward with a rumble. The 8 great guardian warriors, the Flying Centipede, and Old Freak Silver Ji were also sent out of the Shenong Cauldron by Yi Xian to join the battle. The 8 great guardian warriors' mission was still to train themselves, while the Flying Centipede and Old Freak Silver Pole's mission was still the same as before. They were responsible for killing the majority of the universe-grade beasts and leaving only a small portion for the universe-grade powerhouses on their side to train. As for Yi Xian, after he stepped out of the giant Star Fortress, he waved his hand and kept the giant Star Fortress in the undying world in his body to prevent it from being damaged in the fierce battle. Immediately afterward, he raised his head and roared, directly activating the ancient demon ape bloodline in his body. Roar! As Yi Xian roared towards the sky, the power within his body instantly surged like a surging river. It surged mightily and instantly became boundless. His body was like a balloon that was being blown up as it quickly swelled up. A primeval devil ape with 3 heads and 6 arms had already appeared in space. The aura of its 3 true bodies was shocking, and its figure had attained a height of 30 m. It possessed 3 heads and 6 arms, and the aura it emitted was ferocious to the point it was astounding. Roar! 9 changes of the demonic ape. First transformation. Another furious roar rang out, and the ancient ape demon's body instantly swelled to 10 times its original height of 100 feet, reaching its current height of 1,000 feet. Then similar scenes appeared several times. Roar! 9 transformations of the demonic ape. Fourth transformation. A 5th roar rang out as the ancient ape demon's ferocious 3-headed, 6-armed form expanded to a height of 1,000,000 feet after entering its 4th transformation. Roar! 9 transformations of the demonic ape. 5th transformation. With a final roar, the ancient demon ape's body expanded again until it was 1,000,000 zhang tall. At this time, its aura had reached rank 2 Marquis Immortal Realm. However, this was still not the end. Not long ago, Yi Xian had painstakingly comprehended the 6th transformation of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape and had yet to use it. Today was an opportunity, and he couldn't wait to sense how terrifying the boundless vital energy and blood possessed by such a terrifying figure was. Roar! 9 transformations of the demonic ape. 6th transformation. With that final roar, the primordial ape demon, which had already reached a size of 1,000,000 feet, instantly swelled to 10 times its original size, reaching a terrifying size of 10,000,000 feet. This size was absolutely comparable to a small star. At this moment, the aura emitted from his body had reached the pinnacle of his current level. Level 3 Marquis Immortal. Although its cultivation base was only at 3rd level Marquis Immortal, such a huge demonic ape wasn't inferior to a small star. The boundless blood and chi energy it contained was simply indescribable to be described with the word hair-raising. Without a doubt, if he were to include the support of the terrifying chi and blood energy within this terrifying body, the current Yi Xian wouldn't be inferior in a direct battle with a peak of the middle stage of the immortal 6th order. Facing all this, the 5 immortal-level ferocious beasts in a row in the void tens of thousands of miles away were completely dumbfounded. They thought that their opponent was just a mysterious existence at level 1 Marquis Immortal Realm. If that was the case, Although they would still die, they could at least struggle for a while before they died. After all, the opponent was only a rank 1 Marquis Immortal Realm expert. Obviously, he had just broken through to the rank 1 Marquis Immortal Realm. Perhaps he hadn't even stabilized his realm yet. But who would have thought that as soon as the opponent arrived, his originally inconspicuous body would explode again and again. From beginning to end, he had become as big as a small star in just a few breaths' time. As for his cultivation strength, it had reached the terrifying rank 3 Marquis Immortal Realm expert. Rank 3 Marquis Immortal Realm expert. Plus the terrifying vital energy and blood in such a gigantic body. The opponent's true battle strength was probably comparable to a rank 6 Marquis Immortal Realm expert. So, how could they fight this battle? In the face of such a terrifying existence, even the last bit of struggle before their death had become meaningless. Roar! Screech! Under the great fear, the 5 immortal-level ferocious beast commanders who had been standing in a row in the void in front of them, who had already made up their minds to fight to the death with this Marquis Immortal Realm expert, let out a screech in unison and involuntarily turned around to flee. At this moment, they were already scared out of their wits. Even if they knew that this kind of action of turning around and fleeing was completely meaningless, the other party could still crush them one by one like crushing an ant. However, they could not help but turn around and flee. This was completely under the state of being in a state of complete terror. This was a completely subconscious action. All of you are my blood essence. Suddenly turning around and fleeing at this time. Don't you think it's a bit too late? Xianxia rolled his eyes when he saw that these 5 fellows were completely terrified. They were all immortal realm old monsters, and 5 of them at that. They actually didn't say a single word and turned around to flee. Before he finished speaking, his devil ape true body, which was as huge as a star, suddenly waved his hand. Boom! The next moment, a starry sky cauldron, which was hundreds of times larger than Xianxia's current size and was comparable to the biggest superstar, appeared in the void with a wave of his hand, directly blocking the path of the 5 immortal-level ferocious beasts who had turned around to flee. Huff! Immediately after, with a thought from Xianxia, a majestic sea of 7 colored flames swept out from the cauldron that was like a gigantic star. It was as if a large river had suddenly leaked out from the tip of the Milky Way, and in the blink of an eye, it had transformed into an endless sea of flames. After spreading out, it directly covered an area of 10 million kilometers. The universe void was completely enveloped. In front, the 5 immortal-level ferocious beasts who had been blocked by the starry sky cauldron were all trapped in the sea of 7 colored flames that hung over millions of miles. In an instant, it was impossible for them to escape even if they had wings. Chapter 4207. The 5 immortal-level ferocious beasts were enveloped by the magnificent sea of flames that Xianxia had summoned from the Shunnong cauldron in the blink of an eye. They were surrounded by the Shunnong flames of 7 colors. There was nowhere to run. The 5 ferocious beasts were a lion, a tiger, a fox, an eagle, and a sharp-cheeked giant rat. The sharp-cheeked giant rat was the smallest, but it was actually the strongest. It had reached the 8th level of the immortal state, only 1 level away from the peak of the 9th level. However, due to its bloodline, it was only around 3,000 meters long. It was a giant among rats, but it was only average compared to some Star-Lord ferocious beasts. Compared to Xianxia, which was as big as a star, it was almost negligible. Regardless. Apart from that, the largest of the 5 ferocious beasts was a black tiger. It was 70 to 80,000 zhang tall and looked extremely mighty. However, its cultivation base was the weakest among the 5 ferocious beasts. It was only at level 1 sempiternal realm. It seemed like it had just recently become a ferocious beast. It had just broken through. Boom! As he stepped into this vast sea of flames that was tens of millions of kilometers in radius, Xianxia's enormous body instantly occupied a small space. Compared to him, the 5 immortal-level ferocious beasts were so small that they were like ants. Without any hesitation, Xianxia punched at the black tiger that was the largest of the 5, which was around 80,000 meters long. Xianxia had used his full strength in this punch. Before the enormous iron fist had even arrived, the boundless force had already caused the black tiger's enormous body to explode into a bloody mist from a distance of 1,000,000 kilometers. Phew! Almost at the same time, a Shunnong 7-colored flame swept down from the boundless sea of flames above his head. As if it had a mind of its own, it directly enveloped the vast blood mist formed by the explosion of the immortal rank black tiger's body and began to refine it. Pew! 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 Although this punch was aimed at the black tiger old monster, The current Yi Xian's body was simply too large. When the punch was thrown out, the surging force instantly filled the entire space that was enveloped by the seven-colored sea of flames. The other four immortal-level ferocious beasts couldn't dodge at all. They had to bear the impact of the remaining force on their bodies. They all opened their mouths and spurted out blood. Don't waste it like that. That's the essence of your blood. If you keep spitting it out, the quality of your blood essence will be affected. Seeing this scene, a cold light flashed in Yi Xian's eyes. He took a large step forward and closed in on them in an instant. He spread out his arms, and a pair of wind pierced through his ears from the left and right, surrounding the four immortal realm-old monsters. Screech! Screech! The giant rat, which was the fastest and most agile one, was Yi Xian's attack. It was shrieked in doe screech. It was Yi Xuez's head was. The six-tailed heavenly fox, whose cultivation was in the middle, followed closely behind. It saw an opening and narrowly escaped from Yi Xian's right arm as it whistled through the air. Although they were still trapped in this area with a radius of 10 million miles, at least they had avoided the calamity in front of them. Only the azure-maned lion and the black-feathered furious eagle were a bit too big and their cultivation was a bit too weak. In the end, they weren't able to dodge this attack and were continuously blasted apart by Yi Xian's left and right arms that whistled through the air. Their bodies turned into a bloody mist without any suspense and spread out. Immediately afterward, two Xianxia seven-colored flames roared out from the sea of seven-colored flames above. They swept across and completely enveloped the two immortal-rank ferocious beasts' blood mist that had just exploded, directly starting the blood essence condensation process. Senior, we're willing to surrender. Can you spare our lives? As long as you can spare our lives, we're willing to serve you in the future. Seeing that Yi Xian had killed two more of his companions, it would definitely be their turn next. The six-tailed heavenly fox and the giant rat of the eighth step trembled in their hearts. They immediately lowered their bodies and begged for mercy. There's no need. I already have too many subordinates under me. If I add you guys, I really can't afford to feed them. In the face of their pleas, Yi Xian shook his head and refused on the spot. Besides, what's more attractive to me now is the blood essence condensation of the immortal-level ferocious beasts. You guys are the best raw materials. Boom! Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Xian turned around and punched with both fists again. This time, the six-tailed celestial fox and the level 8 giant rat had nowhere to run. Their front and left were blocked by Yi Xian, and behind them and above them was the burning sea of seven colors flames. Screech! Screech! In horror and despair, the six-tailed celestial fox and the level 8 giant rat raised their heads at the same time and let out a shrill screech. Almost at the next moment, two shocking explosions were heard. The bodies of the six-tailed celestial fox and the level 8 giant rat exploded without any suspense. They were each blown into a bloody mist by Yi Xian's punch. Immediately after that, two canisters of Xianxia seven colors flames fell from the sea of seven colors flames above their heads. They wrapped around each other and immediately began to refine them. 5, huh? The harvest this time can be said to be huge. Licking the corner of his mouth, Yi Xian immediately deactivated his three-headed, six-armed devil ape true form. With a wave of his hand, the sea of seven colors flames that covered thousands of miles whizzed out and disappeared into the mouth of the Xianxia cauldron in the distant void. Floating in front of him were 5 blood essences of ferocious beasts of different sizes and colors. They were all immortal level. Whoosh! Whoosh! A faint sound of breaking air was heard. With Yi Xian's thought, the 5 blood essence beads floating in front of him instantly turned into 5 faint blood-colored rays of light that shot directly into Yi Xian's mouth and disappeared. This time, there are 5 blood essences. I wonder, can I break through 2 levels in a row? Muttering softly, Yi Xian's figure flashed. When he reappeared, he was already at the mouth of the Xianxia cauldron in the distance, which was enshrouded in 9-colored mist. He sat down cross-legged and began a new round of closed-door cultivation to break through. Rumble! Roar! Screech! In the distance, a series of loud explosions, as well as the roars and howls of the ferocious beasts, continued to be heard, one after another rising and falling. On the other side, Yi Xian easily dealt with 5 immortal stage ferocious beasts in less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea. In the surrounding void of the universe, the curtains of the bloody battle between the millions of battleships on Xianxia Star and the 20,000 demon cultivator scouts led by Gue Hai Yi Dao and Song Qingyu and the millions of ferocious beasts in this forbidden space of stars had just begun. Chapter 4208. In the void, a mysterious cauldron the size of a giant star stood there quietly. The mouth of the cauldron was filled with rolling nine-colored fog. A figure was sitting cross-legged there. It was Yixian, who had swallowed the 5 blood essences and was trying to break through again. At this time, as the effect of the 5 blood essences was released, they turned into a scorching river of energy that surged in Yixian's body. Once again, a small human shackle appeared in his body. The incomparably hot blood essence energy surged endlessly in his body. This process was undoubtedly painful, but he immersed his mind in it. With the profound meaning of the ancient cave void tactics, he urged the incomparably hot energy river in his body to flow along his meridians, completing the great circulatory cycle. This time, perhaps it was because this was not the first time he had consumed the blood essences, but the effect of these 5 blood essences was clearly not as strong as the first time he had consumed them. Fortunately, the total amount of 5 blood essences was still able to hold on for a total of 49 cycles. Soon after, a loud crash sounded out from Yixian's mind. At this moment, the scorching energy that had been surging through the 100 meridians in his body was completely exhausted. When Yixian opened his eyes, the familiar sound of the system's notification rang in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu tactics. Current realm. Level 6 of the immortal realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the body's qi and blood. Current realm. Level 6 of the immortal realm. Before this, the strength of his original body was at level 5 of the immortal realm. Once he activated the bloodline of the ancient demon ape with 3 heads and 6 arms, his strength soared again to level 6 of the immortal realm. If he used the 9 changes of the demonic ape and reached the 6th change, he would instantly reach level 3 of the Marquis immortal realm. And now, with the increase in his cultivation and breakthrough, once Yixian activates the devil ape bloodline in his body and enters the 6th transformation of the devil ape, his peak combat strength will rise by another level, reaching the 4th level of the Marquis immortal. He had finally entered the middle stage of the Marquis immortal realm. Although his cultivation had successfully broken through again and he had now reached level 6 of the immortal realm, if he activated the bloodline of the ancient demon ape and used the 6th change of the 9 changes of the demonic ape, he would instantly possess the terrifying battle strength of a level 4 of the Marquis immortal realm. However, Yixian did not seem too happy. Previously, just 1 immortal rank blood essence was enough to allow him to break through a small level after his closed-door cultivation. Now, however, it took a total of 5 immortal rank blood essences to achieve the same effect and allow him to break through a small level. This was only the 2nd time, and he already needed 5 blood essences to break through a minor level. What would happen after that? If he wanted to break through a small level, wouldn't he need more and more blood essence? Every time Yixian thought of this, he wanted to sigh. He thought he had found a faster way to break through compared to using the great flesh medicine. He did not expect the result to be like this. He was only happy for a day or 2. Then he was disappointed. However, as long as I don't take them again, the difference between the first time and the 2nd time will not be so great. Then, 5 immortal level blood essences is still acceptable. After calming himself down, Yixian's mind raced as he muttered to himself, analyzing the possibility of this happening. After a while, his eyes flashed with a bright light, and he made a decision in an instant. If he wanted to know if the 3rd time he swallowed this blood essence, the effect would be the same as it was now, where he only needed about 5 of them to break through a small stage, or if the effect would continue to decline significantly, the only way was to personally test it and swallow it again. Then he would naturally know. Thinking of this, Yixian deliberately moved. The last 4 forbidden areas in space should have joined forces by now. Previously, when I used my divine sense to search for them for the first time, the number of immortal level beasts in these 4 forbidden areas seemed to be 14. Although he was talking about 14 immortal realm ferocious beasts, he was actually thinking about 14 immortal realm blood essences at this moment. Thinking of this, Yixian couldn't sit still any longer. He subconsciously turned his head to look at the surrounding void battlefield. Since the beginning of this battle, although he had already killed 5 immortal rank ferocious beasts and refined the blood mist formed after their bodies exploded into blood essence, he had even swallowed 5 blood essences into his stomach, completing a closed-door cultivation breakthrough. However, the battle around him was still going on. It continued. There was no doubt that this was a one-sided battle. However, judging from the current situation, it would take at least an entire day to clean up the mess after the battle was over. It would be fine if it was only half a day. However, Yi Xian could not wait for an entire day. Moreover, he was worried that the immortal rank ferocious beasts in the other 4 forbidden lands would turn around and flee when the fear in their hearts grew stronger. Although the army of beasts under his command could not take them away, to Yi Xian, the escape of one immortal level beast was equivalent to losing one immortal level beast blood essence. This was too extravagant. Considering this possibility, he immediately made a decision after pondering for a while. He would not wait for the battle here to end. He would immediately rush to the other 4 forbidden areas and kill the 14 immortal level beasts first. As for the battle here, with the 2 immortal level beasts, Flying Centipede and Old Monster Silver G, staying here to watch, there was no possibility of accidents happening. After making the decision, he immediately took action. He rushed out of the mouth of the Shunnong cauldron and kept the cauldron with a wave of his hand. Then, he turned his head to look at the Flying Centipede and Old Monster Silver G. He instructed, "The 2 of you stay here and watch. There are still 14 immortal level beasts in the other 4 forbidden areas. It is very likely that they have joined forces. It is also possible that they are trying to escape. I will go first and deal with the 14 immortal level beasts first. You 2 wait for the battle to end and clean up the battlefield before coming back." Chapter 4209. At this moment, the energy within Yi Xian's body surged like a surging river. It surged mightily and instantly became boundless. His body was like a balloon that was being blown up as it quickly swelled up. An ancient ape with 3 heads and 6 arms appeared in the void. The aura of its 3 true forms, flesh, bones and black mist, was shocking. It was around 30 meters tall, had 3 heads and 6 arms, and the aura it emitted was ferocious to the point it was shocking. Howl! 9 Transformation of the Devil Ape. First Transformation. 9 Transformation of the Devil Ape. 6th Transformation. With a final howl, the ancient ape that was already 3 million meters tall, and its body was like a small star. In an instant, its body expanded tenfold, reaching a terrifying 3 million meters tall. This size was comparable to a small star, and the aura emitted from its body had reached the terrifying 4th level of the Marquis level. Even though he was only at the 4th stage, if the terrifying blood and chi energy within his enormous body were to be included, the current Yi Xian would definitely be able to fight head-on against a late-stage expert at the 7th or 8th stage of the Marquis realm. If he added on the Fallen Sky Bow and the Farmer God Cauldron, he would be able to fight emperors easily. What? 4th level emperor? How can he be so strong? Ancient demon ape. This powerful emperor is actually an ancient demon ape. That's an absolute bloodline. How could this remote corner of the star region have an existence that belonged to the strongest bloodline even in the distant desolate ancient era? Such a being, even in the central region of this world, would definitely be an overlord. Yet here he is. This doesn't make sense. What I'm even more puzzled about is that this senior is clearly a ferocious beast, and an ancient ferocious beast with a noble and supreme bloodline. Why? Why would he mix with those weak primordial remnants? None of this is important. What's important is that the enemy is attacking. Everyone, what should we do? Hong! Screech! Seeing Yi Xian suddenly activate the Devil Ape bloodline in his body and directly use the Devil Ape's 9 transformations to the 6th transformation, transforming into a terrifying Devil Ape with 3 heads and 6 arms. The 14 immortal-level ferocious beasts were instantly shocked. Caught off guard, they all cried out involuntarily. They exclaimed. It was also at this moment that Yi Xian, whose body was like a star, approached them with a leap. Without saying anything, he punched out, and in the blink of an eye, the 2 immortal-level fierce beasts that were caught off guard exploded into a bloody mist. At this moment, he had the fighting strength of a level 4 Marquis Immortal Realm expert, which was the middle phase of this realm. It was different from the peak of level 3 in the previous battle. He was much stronger now. It was natural that he could kill 2 immortal-level beasts with one punch. Who? With a wave of his hand, 2 canopies of Shunnong 7 color flames roared out of the Shunnong cauldron, wrapping around the 2 canopies of blood mist and starting the blood essence refinement. All of this happened too quickly. 2 of the 14 undying beasts were killed in an instant, leaving only 12 undying beasts. At this moment, the 12 surviving immortal-level beasts all retreated, not daring to lightly attack him. To the current Yi Xian, the immortal-level battle prowess no longer had the qualifications to fight him head-on. Facing more than a dozen immortal-level beasts, the current him was as if a tiger in a flock of sheep. "Senior, do you have to fight to the death like this? We have no enmity and have never offended you. Senior, as a descendant of the beasts, why are you helping those ants of Xianxia Star to kill us all? Senior, we are willing to surrender and surrender to you. A dozen undying battle strength is enough to help you go to the central territory of the starry sky and seize a more powerful forbidden area." That's right. There are even immortal rank experts guarding the more powerful forbidden lands. Senior won't be able to take them down alone. We're willing to help Senior block those immortal rank generals so that Senior can focus on killing the enemy. Roar. I am unwilling. Hong. Facing Yi Xian's terrifying battle strength that was comparable to a late-stage official-level Undying, the 12 normal Undying beasts couldn't resist at all. Even their will to fight crumbled instantly. They originally thought that the Undying behind the Desolate Star was only at the early stage of this level, at most level 2 or 3. Who would have thought that not only was his cultivation base at level 4, but he also had a demon ape true form with 3 heads and 6 arms. His blood chi was so strong that his battle strength was close to level 7 or 8 of Marquis level 8. Hence, this battle had no suspense at all. Even if they fought together, they were destined to be killed one by one. Under the fear in their hearts, the 12 ordinary immortal-level beasts all tried to persuade him, patiently guiding him, and even expressed their willingness to surrender on the spot. As the vanguard, they would help Yi Xian head to the central domain of the starry sky, and attack a place where the overall strength of the Marquis realm was even stronger. The will of the Forbidden Land. Unfortunately, all of this had no effect at all. The ancient ape demon was completely unmoved, and did not even bother to make any response. Oh no, its response was actually very strong, very obvious, and it immediately punched out. The majestic power of this explosion surged out and appeared too suddenly. The 2 immortal rank ferocious beasts were the first to bear the brunt of it. They had no time to dodge at all. One of them didn't even have the chance to make a sound, and the other only unwillingly raised its head and let out a heaven-shaking roar. Immediately after, the boundless strength chi that was as violent as a storm completely covered the 2 of them. What happened next was no surprise. Yi Xian, whose battle strength was comparable to a level 8 official level Undying, wasn't much weaker than the second-generation ancestor of the demon race. The latter was a level 9 official level Undying at the pinnacle level. At this moment, the 2 normal Undying beasts were only at level 3 or 4. This majestic force that made people's hair stand on end instantly wreaked havoc and made their bodies explode, turning them into a mist of blood. Who? Yi Xian was already familiar with the rest of the story. With a wave of his hand, the 2 Shinong 7-colored flames instantly rushed out, firmly wrapping around the 2 exploding fierce beast blood mist. He immediately began refining the blood essence at the first possible moment. All of this took a long time to describe. In fact, from the time Yi Xian activated the ancient ape demon bloodline in his body until now, only a dozen breaths' time had passed since he killed the 4 undying beasts with 2 punches. Chapter 42:10. There was no suspense in the outcome of the battle. Even when these 14 ordinary immortal stage ferocious beasts hadn't suffered any losses in the beginning, when the 14 immortal stage ferocious beasts joined forces to fight Yi Xian, they still didn't have the slightest chance of winning. Now, within a short span of a dozen breaths, Yi Xian had blown up 4 immortal realm ultimate ferocious beasts with 2 punches. There were only 10 immortal realm ultimate ferocious beasts left. Because of the fear and despair in their hearts, these 10 immortal realm ultimate ferocious beasts did not even have the confidence to join forces to fight. Their fighting spirit was completely gone. They all turned around and fled in different directions. Faced with such a situation, they were completely hopeless. They were no match for Yi Xian even if they joined forces. Now that they had scattered like birds and beasts, the only outcome was that they would be caught by Yi Xian, who was much faster than them, and killed one by one. Boom! Boom boom! Screech! Roar! In the void, as Yi Xian attacked again and again, a huge roar that shook the heavens resounded in an instant. It was followed by the desperate and unwilling roars and screeches of the immortal realm ultimate ferocious beasts. This battle was too bloody. Although it was brutal, it was simple and direct. In less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Yi Xian had caught up to the 10 immortal level ferocious beasts one after another. Every single one of them was simply punched out, causing them to explode into a bloody mist. Then, Yi Xian waved his hand and drew out a wisp of Shenlong's seven-colored flame from the Shenlong cauldron in his body. It enveloped the bloody mist that spread after the explosion of the target and began to condense the blood essence on the spot. Near and far, the tens of millions of ferocious beasts that had gathered behind the 14 immortal realm ultimate ferocious beasts had already scattered. As far as the eye could see, the vast expanse of space was in chaos. Everywhere were the figures of ominous beasts fleeing in panic. As these ominous beasts fled, their bodies trembled incessantly. Moreover, there were all sorts of low and deep cries due to great fear resounding throughout the area. Yi Xian didn't pay any attention to these fleeing space beasts. He wasn't interested in them at all. When the army of the survivors of Mulberry Ji Star arrived, they would naturally launch the final attack on these ferocious beasts in the various forbidden areas of the starry sky. Previously, Yi Xian didn't know much about the world outside the hundreds of millions of kilometers of void. However, from the information that the 14 immortal rank ferocious beasts had inadvertently revealed when they were begging for mercy, the hundreds of millions of kilometers of void surrounded by Mulberry Ji Star and the 6 surrounding starry sky forbidden zones should only be limited. It was just a remote corner of this desolate ancient world fragment. Even further behind these 6 forbidden lands, there were even stronger forbidden lands. The beasts guarding them were all official level undyings, even emperor level undyings. After understanding the situation, Yi Xian finally understood why none of the immortal level beasts in the 6 forbidden areas of the starry sky didn't flee far away from the starry sky when they clearly knew that an immortal level marquee level immortal 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 level immortal. This was because they had nowhere to go. In the distant void behind them, there were even more powerful forbidden lands, and there were also terrifying official level undyings. This way, Yi Xian didn't have to worry about the tens of millions of ferocious beasts escaping. Similarly, they had no way to escape and could only wander about in this vast expanse of space. In a sense, Mulberry Star, which was surrounded by the 6 forbidden areas of space, was imperceptibly sealed. However, weren't the 6 forbidden areas of space the same? However, none of this had anything to do with Yi Xian. He didn't feel that there was anything wrong with the bloody massacre he was about to unleash. The chaos of the Great Desolate Era could descend at any time. Everyone was working hard to survive because everyone wasn't just living for themselves. They all had different things to protect. Xiao! Xiao xiao xiao! A faint sound of breaking through the air was heard. From the surrounding void, streaks of bloody light shot over and landed in Yi Xian's right palm. They transformed into 14 blood essence beads of different sizes and colors. Looking at the 14 blood essence beads in his palm, Yi Xian's eyes flashed with joy. With a wave of his hand, the Fama God cauldron appeared from within his body. 14 streaks of rainbow-colored light shot over from the surrounding void and entered the cauldron. Yi Xian's figure also flashed as he appeared at the mouth of the Shenlong cauldron that was filled with a 9-colored fog. He sat down cross-legged and threw the 14 blood essences into his mouth. After swallowing them, he closed his eyes and began another round of closed-door cultivation. When the 14 blood essence beads enter his stomach, Yi Xian was still a little nervous at first. This was because if the third time he swallowed these blood essence beads, the difference between the first and second time would be the same. Then, these 14 blood essence beads would be far from enough to help him break through a small level. This was definitely a result that would make people speechless. Yi Xian would be greatly disappointed. But at the same time, he also had a strong sense of expectation in his heart. Because if the third time he swallowed them, the effect would be the same as the second time. Although it would be far inferior to the first time, compared to the second time, it wouldn't be too much of a decline. Then, these 14 blood essence beads would definitely not just allow him to break through a small level. At the very least, it would allow him to break through 2 small levels, or even 3 small levels. Of course, the possibility of 3 consecutive breakthroughs was still very small. Soon, the 14 blood essence beads melted in Yi Xian's body in the blink of an eye. They turned into a majestic and scorching energy that quickly flowed through his limbs and bones. The familiar clanking sound of chains could be heard immediately. There was also an extremely strong tingling sensation. The 1.08 billion pores on the surface of his body glowed brightly. This time, he couldn't even remember how many large circulations he had made. Finally, a loud clanking sound rang out in Yi Xian's mind. The scorching energy that had been surging through his meridians was completely exhausted at this moment. When he opened his eyes, the familiar sound of the system notification suddenly rang out in his mind. It had happened twice in a row, which made him extremely happy. Ding! Congratulations to the host for making a breakthrough in the realm of the ancient Dongshu formula. Current realm. Level 7 of the immortal realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for making a breakthrough in the realm of the Qi and blood body. Current realm. Level 7 of the immortal realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for making a breakthrough in the realm of the ancient Dongshu formula. Current realm. Level 8 of the immortal realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for making a breakthrough in the realm of the Qi and blood body. Current realm. Level 8 of the immortal realm. Level 8 of the immortal realm. Another 2 consecutive breakthroughs. Now that Yi Xian had made another breakthrough in his cultivation, once he activated the bloodline of the demonic ape in his body and entered the 6th change of the demonic ape, his peak battle strength would soar to level 6 of the Marquis Immortal Realm. He was only 1 level away from becoming a Marquis Immortal Realm. Then, he would reach the advanced Marquis Immortal Realm. Chapter 42:11. Now, Yi Xian was at the 8th level of the Undying Realm under normal circumstances. If he wanted to become an official Undying, he still needed to break through 2 levels. According to his estimation, he would need at least 15 Undying level blood essences of ferocious beasts to break through these 2 levels. There was no longer a single immortal rank ferocious beast in this multi-million-mile-wide cosmic void. The only way for him to obtain immortal rank ferocious beast blood essence was to leave this multi-million-mile-wide cosmic void and hunt in other forbidden areas in the starry sky that were even more distant. Yes. Of course, in the sealed cave at the bottom of the Shennon Cauldron Domain volcano in his body, there were many corpses of immortal primordial creatures, from ordinary immortal, marquis, king, emperor, all the way to quasi-primordial, desolation supreme and so on. And there were many of them. However, these remains of primordial creatures that had been dead for a long time couldn't be used to refine blood essences. They could only be roasted or refined into blood and flesh medicine. Hence, if he wanted to obtain new Undying level blood essences, going to other forbidden lands further away in the space of billions of miles was the only choice. However, compared to the 6 forbidden lands in this corner of the starry sky, those forbidden lands were much stronger. Every one of them had an official level ferocious beast guarding them. Even if Yi Xian went stealthily by himself and started hunting, it would be fine if there were only a few of them. However, if he wanted to hunt a total of 15 immortal level beasts and use the divine Nong 7-colored flame to condense blood essence on the spot. Once the official level Undyings in these forbidden lands were alerted, and the other official level Undyings in other forbidden lands would join forces, then even if Yi Xian had the ability to deal with them, he would be hard-pressed. From his point of view, it wasn't the right time to officially start a war with these official level Undyings in space. No matter what, he had to improve his strength a little more. The entire Mulberry Ji planet had 12 major tribes, thousands of mountain villages, and tens of millions of primordial survivors. He had to take another step forward before the time was ripe. According to Yi Xian's original plan, after sweeping through all 6 of the forbidden areas in the starry sky and dominating this corner of the starry sky for hundreds of millions of kilometers, he would bring his subordinates and hibernate in Mulberry Ji Star. He would refine all of the fierce beast materials into great flesh and blood medicine, and then all of them would be refined. He went into seclusion to cultivate and break through. At the same time, Yi Xian himself would do the same. Only when his cultivation and the overall cultivation level of his subordinates had reached a new height would he step out of this corner of the void and begin a new journey. This main line of the plan would not change for the time being. However, Yi Xian needed even more immortal rank vicious beast blood essences. As such, he had to find a balance between the two. Forget it. I'll bring the army here first and carry out the final hunt for the tens of millions of ferocious beasts that fled from the 4 forbidden lands of the starry sky. After that, I'll return to Mulberry Tree and refine the flesh medicine. Muttering to himself, Yi Xian quickly finalized the follow-up details of the plan. As for me, I've swallowed blood essences 3 times in a row. There's still some medicinal power in my blood, flesh, marrow, and bones that I haven't refined. After returning to Mulberry Tree, I can go into seclusion again. At the same time, I'll consume some top-grade purple gold flesh medicine and the all-evil origin liquid as a supplement to start a new breakthrough. Once this breakthrough is successful, I'll only be a small breakthrough away from becoming an immortal marquis in my normal state. the amount of blood essences I need will be greatly reduced. Moreover, since this is a breakthrough, I'll need a bottle of level 21 liquid. As such, if I use the method of condensing blood essences to refine this bottle of level 21 liquid, I'll most likely be able to add some energy from the remains of quasi-desolation powerful beings. If that's the case, I should only need 3 or 4 blood essences to complete the final breakthrough. In other words, I only need to sneak to the edge of the Forbidden Land further away and kill 4 immortal-level ferocious beasts stealthily. That should be enough. With that in mind, Xianxia no longer hesitated. With a flash of his body, he shot toward the second Forbidden Land of the starry sky that had just been exterminated. He arrived at his destination in just half an hour. At this time, the battle here had also ended. Gui Hai Yi Dao, Song Qingyu, and the other 20,000 demon experts were assisting the tens of millions of primordial survivors on Mulberry Tree to clean up the battlefield and collect the spoils of war. All of this was sped up by Yixian's arrival. In just a few hours, it was completely over. After that, Yixian waved his hand and summoned the giant life fortress of Long Yi. After having all of his subordinates enter the giant life fortress, he waved his hand and charged towards the tens of millions of forbidden beasts in front of him, each of them looking for a place to hide. Hong! Hong long long! After the giant fortress of life arrived at this area, a loud roar rang out again. The tens of millions of primordial survivors on Mulberry Tree all moved out in all kinds of warships, including the 20,000 demon experts led by Gui Hai Yi Dao and Song Qingyu. The 8 great guardian deities, Flying Centipede, and Old Monster Silver Ji were not idle either. Once again, they were blasted out of the Shenong Cauldron by Yixian. The former's mission was to refine weapons and temper himself, while the latter's mission was to kill all the old monsters among the tens of millions of ferocious beasts in the Forbidden Lands, leaving only a small portion for the dozens of universe-grade survivors on Mulberry Tree to refine their weapons. A bloody battle broke out again in an instant. This battle lasted even longer. After all, the target of the hunt was all the ferocious beasts in the 4 Forbidden Lands in the starry skies. There were nearly 50 million of them. Moreover, these ferocious beasts of the Forbidden Grounds had long lost their courage after the 14 immortal-rank ferocious beast commanders were killed one by one in a short period of time. They had all scattered and found a place to hide. It would take a lot of effort just to drag them out of their hiding places. It would definitely take some time. Yixian still did not participate in this battle, but he did not go far away. Instead, he sat cross-legged at the mouth of the Shenong Cauldron, which was shrouded in 9-colored fog, and deduced the formula of the level 21 liquid that was about to be condensed. In the end, after 3 full days, Yixian finally perfectly deduced the formula of the level 21 liquid. This final battle finally came to an end. Chapter 42:12. 3 days later, the final battle was over. Since then, the original 6 Forbidden Lands of the Starry Sky had completely disappeared, and the tribe of the Desolation survivors on the Mulberry Tree Star had become the only existence in this remote corner of the void, dominating hundreds of millions of miles. Of course, there were still many living stars in this region that were home to ferocious beasts that didn't belong to the 6 Forbidden Zones. However, regardless of whether it was Yixian or the survivors of the primordial era on Xianxia planet, none of them planned to kill all of these ferocious beasts. There was no need for that at all. There were already enough ferocious beast corpses on hand. There were nearly 80 million of them, enough for the 12 great tribes on Xianxia planet, as well as thousands of strongholds of various sizes. The tens of millions of primordial survivors had refined an ocean's worth of flesh medicine. Moreover, they'd only used up a small portion of the flesh medicine they'd obtained in the previous frenzied refinement. They still had plenty left. After returning to Mulberry Tree Star, the second large-scale flesh medicine refinement exercise was launched immediately. Yixian didn't pay any attention to any of this. The flesh medicine they'd refined this time wasn't even worth his attention. According to his instructions, the tens of millions of primordial survivors on Mulberry Tree could digest them on their own. As for the 8 Vajras, the Flying Centipede, Old Monster Inji, Gui Hai Yi Dao, Song Qingyu, and Ying Tai, they all entered the Farmer God Cauldron and Fortress of Life to cultivate in seclusion again. Their cultivation was still a little weak in the end. There was still a long way to go before they could grow stronger. Yixian didn't enter Mulberry Tree. He remained in space outside the planet's atmosphere. After summoning the Farmer God Cauldron with a wave of his hand, he flashed to the mouth of the cauldron shrouded in 9-colored mist and sat down cross-legged. First, he calmed his mind, and then he took out a large amount of cultivation resources. Besides the purple gold top-notch flesh and blood medicine that he had just refined not long ago, there was also the netherworld furnace lotion, all evil origin liquid, and so on. In the end, after pondering for a while, Xian even cut off a small piece of the blood and flesh of the purple gold rat from the sealed cave at the bottom of the volcano in the central region of the space inside the cauldron. He roasted it with the Shennong 7-colored flame until it was golden and oil dripping. After the fragrance of the meat filled the air, he took out the cultivation resources that he had already prepared. Together, they chewed and swallowed. After he finished all of this, he closed his eyes and entered a new round of closed-door cultivation to break through. Time slowly passed by. However, at this very moment, Xian had already entered a state where he had completely forgotten about the existence of time. Walala! Hua! Ever since he had swallowed all the cultivation resources that he had prepared, Xian's body had been ringing with the sound of chains. All the cultivation resources had melted and turned into a warm current that finally gathered together in his body. It was like a big river, with a heart-palpitating scorching heat, rolling and surging endlessly in Xian's limbs and bones. Although it was painful, Xian had long been accustomed to this kind of pain. It did not affect his mind at all. Currently, his entire mind was immersed in the comfortable feeling of opening up the meridians in his body and breaking through the shackles of his fleshly body to his heart's content. It was as if he was intoxicated. His entire fleshly body was emitting rays of dazzling light. The 1.08 billion pores on his body were all flowing with auspicious aura. Finally, with a loud noise in Xian's mind, the scorching energy that had been rolling and surging in his meridians was completely exhausted at this moment. When Xian opened his eyes, the familiar sound of the system notification suddenly rang in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu formula. Current realm. Level 9 Immortal Realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the Qi and Blood Body. Current realm. Level 9 Immortal Realm. Following this breakthrough in his cultivation, Xian's current cultivation strength had already reached the perfection of the 9th step of the Immortal Realm under normal circumstances. Once he activated the demonic ape bloodline in his body, he would be able to break through one realm and attain the strength of Level 1 Marquis Immortal Realm. If he entered the 6th change of the demonic ape bloodline, his peak battle strength would soar again and reach Level 6 Marquis Immortal Realm. He would enter the late stage of Marquis Immortal Realm. Although this breakthrough was only a small level, it was significant to Xian at this moment. This was because he was about to go to the Forbidden Land of Space that was even further away from the Forbidden Land of Space to hunt immortal level supreme ferocious beasts. As he did not intend to alarm the Marquis Immortals in the Forbidden Land of Space, he set his target as 5 blood essences for now. Besides, the only way to hunt them was by stealth. Since he was going to hunt them in stealth, he had to ensure that he could kill them in one hit. Otherwise, once a battle broke out, he would undoubtedly be exposed. And the targets were all immortal level supreme ferocious beasts. To ensure that he could kill them in one hit, Xian had to possess the strength of Marquis Immortal Realm, even if it was only at level 1. Before this breakthrough, he had activated the demonic ape bloodline in his body and displayed the demonic ape true form with 3 heads and 6 arms. However, his strength was only at level 9 Immortal Realm. If he wanted to reach level 1 Marquis Immortal Realm, he would have to perform the first change of the 9 changes of the demonic ape. However, once he did so, his body size would increase by 10 times, reaching a height of 300 meters. Although 300 meters was not huge, it was still too eye-catching for stealth hunting. If the target was too big, even if he hid his body, his aura could be leaked, and thus, his whereabouts would be exposed. However, this problem was perfectly solved now. After breaking through another level, Xian's strength had reached level 9 Immortal Realm Perfection. If he wanted to possess the strength of an Marquis Immortal Realm Perfection, he only needed to activate the demonic ape bloodline in his body. There was no need for him to perform the 9 changes of the demonic ape bloodline ability. In this way, his body would only be around 30 meters tall, which would make it much more convenient for him to sneak around and hunt. After ending this round of seclusion, Xian did not alarm anyone on Xianxia Star. He waved his hand and stored the farmer god cauldron into his undying world. Then, with a flash of his body, he shot toward the faraway void of this forbidden land of space. Those even more powerful forbidden areas in the starry sky were obviously not too close to the corner of the starry sky where Xianxia was located. Xian had long since been mentally prepared for this. Even so, the boring interstellar travel that followed still left him speechless. Although he was traveling in his normal state and did not use the void-shattering shuttle or the wild dragon ship, his speed was not considered slow as he was at level 9 immortal realm perfection. Just like that, they traveled at full speed for a full 10 days, leaving behind hundreds of millions of kilometers of space behind them. Finally, in the distant space in front of them, a place with densely packed life planets gathered together finally appeared. If there were no accidents, this must be an even more powerful starry sky forbidden area. Chapter 42:13. When he was in the mulberry tree starfield, the 6 forbidden lands were not very large in scale. They were basically a dozen life stars with a large number of powerful ferocious beasts gathered in one area. Tens of millions of ferocious beasts were formed under the leadership of 3 to 4 immortal-level ferocious beasts. A forbidden land in space. But right now, after Xianxia left the mulberry tree star region, he flew through the starry sky for an entire 10 days. After traveling hundreds of millions of kilometers, he encountered this forbidden area in the starry sky. The scale of this forbidden area clearly far surpassed the 6 forbidden areas in the mulberry tree star region. Let's not talk about whether the strongest fierce beast leader in this forbidden land was a marquis or not, or how many marquis-level undying beasts there were. Just in this relatively large star field, there were more than 100 planets with a large number of ferocious beasts living in them. Judging from this number, there were at least 100 million ferocious beasts in this starry sky forbidden area. According to Xianxia's estimation, if there were no accidents, the fierce beast leaders in this forbidden land must be marquis-level undying beasts, and there should be more than 2 or 3 of them. If there were more than 2 marquis-level undying beasts, then there should be more than 100 immortal-level fierce beasts, if not more. It just so happened that there were more than 100 life stars in this area. Therefore, if there were no accidents, there should be an immortal-level fierce beast in each of these life stars. Xianxia didn't enter this area as a human, because if he did, he would undoubtedly be exposed. Although in the vast void outside of the mulberry tree star region, other than the more powerful forbidden areas in the starry sky, there were also more powerful ancient remnant stars. However, in this fragment of void, the primordial remnant and space fierce beasts were obviously enemies. This was a forbidden land under the rule of fierce beasts, so it was unlikely that the primordial remnant would appear here. While he was still a distance away, Xianxia had already activated the devil ape bloodline in his body and showed his 3-headed, 6-armed ancient devil ape body. Previously, under normal circumstances, his strength was at the peak of the 9th level of the immortal realm. After activating the devil ape bloodline, his strength was at the 1st level of the marquis level, which was extremely powerful. However, this kind of strength obviously could not be exposed. Otherwise, in this forbidden land in space, it would be like a candle in the night sky. It would be too eye-catching and would bring endless trouble. Even his 3-headed, 6-armed demonic ape true form could not appear like this, because although most of the ferocious beasts inhabiting this corner of the void of the primordial world fragment were rare species in the 3 main planes of the starry sky, and had a strong bloodline of primordial creatures, the 3-headed, 6-armed demonic ape was too powerful. After all, the ancient devil ape was too famous. Even in this fragment of void space, there were no descendants of the ancient devil ape bloodline. Once Xianxia showed up with his 3-headed, 6-armed devil ape body, he was afraid that it would immediately cause a sensation and cause a lot of trouble. It would undoubtedly be difficult to carry out the follow-up stealth hunting. Just as he carefully spread out his divine sense, Xianxia found that among the hundreds of life stars of fierce beasts in front of him, there was a life star inhabited by fierce beasts. Most of them were violent star apes. Moreover, this life star, where most of the fierce beasts were violent star apes, happened to be located at the edge of the star field. The size of the life star was not the largest, but not the smallest either. It was about the size of a medium. It could be said that it was the best place to target. Therefore, after pondering for a while, Xianxia immediately took the other 2 bodies of the devil ape body, which was the skeleton body and the black fog body, into his body. Only the body of flesh and blood was left, and he slightly changed it to look similar to the violent star apes. As for the strength of his cultivation, he hid it around the sector lord level. It was not too low but not too high. If it was too high, it would arouse suspicion. If it was too low, even if he entered the life star where the violent star apes lived, he was afraid that he would not be able to get close to the immortal level fierce beasts that ruled this life star. Yes. After everything was ready, Xianxia checked it and was very satisfied. Then, without delay, his figure flashed and rushed to the target life star in the right corner of the void space. After entering this forbidden space, the fierce beasts' activities in the void space became extremely frequent. From time to time, there would be a fierce beast of different forms passing by. Although they belonged to different races and had different bloodlines, they were all subordinates of the same forbidden space. Therefore, these fierce beasts of space would obviously not have conflicts with each other casually. Of course, this kind of thing could not be stopped. After all, fierce beasts were naturally bloodthirsty and warlike. At this time, Xianxia was a violent star ape with the cultivation of Sector Lord level. He was only 2 realms away from the immortal level. Even in this powerful forbidden space, such a cultivation strength could be considered to be above the middle level among the subordinates of the immortal level fierce beasts of a life star. Therefore, he entered the target life star without any hindrance. After finding a place to hide, he spread out his soul consciousness silently. Soon, he captured the aura of 2 immortal level fierce beasts. In this life star, there were 2 immortal level fierce beasts. They were both violent star apes, and they happened to be together at this moment. To Xianxia, this was the best time to make a move. Retracting his soul consciousness, Xianxia used his violent star ape form and tried his best to get close to them. When he was tens of thousands of li away from them, he was stopped by their guards. Then, he turned around and left. He went to the back of a mountain and directly activated the energy in his body. Teleport. Xiao. With Xianxia's current cultivation strength, he could accurately teleport from tens of thousands of li away. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of the 2 immortal level violent star apes, less than 100 meters away from them. At this moment, as Xianxia used his full strength to teleport, his immortal level 1 immortal level aura was fully displayed. All the violent star apes on the life star could feel it. All the ferocious beasts on the planet were dumbfounded when they sensed the terrifying aura of the Marquis level Undying Realm. They didn't know what was going on. Why would a Marquis level Undying Realm commander of a forbidden land come here? As for the 2 immortal rank Starry Sky Berserk apes in front of Xianxia, they were completely dumbfounded in an instant. They stared at Xianxia with their mouths agape. They also didn't understand why a powerful Marquis immortal would suddenly appear in the core area of their lair. Chapter 42:14. Xianxia's unexpected appearance caused the 2 immortal rank Starry Sky Berserk apes to be shocked. Soon after, the 2 of them fell into a state of shock. They didn't realize that danger was coming, and they never thought that the Marquis level Undying in front of them would attack them, because they were all space-violent apes, and the same blood flowed in their bodies. Although the origin of the other party was a bit strange, he was still an elder of the same race. However, in the next instant, before the 2 of them could recover from their bewilderment, an unforeseen event suddenly occurred. Boom! Boom! Ruthless! Xianxia, who had quietly appeared, didn't hesitate in the slightest. Taking advantage of the fact that the other party had yet to recover from his shock, he immediately threw out 2 punches. The strength of the Marquis Immortal was undoubtedly revealed, and at such a close distance, the 2 immortal level Starry Sky Berserk apes didn't even have time to react. They were blasted apart, turning into 2 clouds of bloody mist. One of them didn't even have the time to make a sound, and the other only let out a short howl. The howl had only just started, but it had already come to an abrupt stop in an instant. Who? After that, Xianxia waved his hand, and 2 Shinong 7-colored flames surged out of the Shinong cauldron in his body. One on the left and one on the right, they enveloped the 2 clouds of blood mist from the explosion of the 2 undying space-violent apes and started the blood essence condensation immediately. The whole process was very fast, and in less than 3 breaths, the blood essence condensation was completed. As Xianxia waved his hand again, the 2 Shinong 7-colored flames flew back into his body, and at the same time, 2 nascent soul fist-sized blood essence beads shot back into Xianxia's Shinong cauldron and disappeared. In the blink of an eye, the 2 immortal rank Starry Sky Berserk apes were instantly killed by Xianxia's thunderous methods. Moreover, they were condensed into 2 nascent fist-sized ferocious beast blood essences on the spot and absorbed them into his body. After doing all this, Xianxia didn't stay for a moment. His figure flashed, and before all the beasts on the entire planet could react, he had already arrived outside the atmosphere of this planet. Without any hesitation, he turned around and rushed to the nearest life planet. The goal of this mission was to get 5 undying level blood essences, and now he had already gotten 2. He still needed 3 more, which meant that after this, Xianxia had to kill 3 undying level beasts as quickly as possible. It wasn't realistic to plan slowly and carefully like before because the deaths of the 2 Starry Sky apes would be discovered very soon. Moreover, if nothing unexpected happened, this matter would be reported at the first possible moment. At that time, the Marquis Undyings in this powerful forbidden area would be immediately alarmed. At that time, with a single order, at least 100 immortal level beasts in the 100 or so life stars would all move out. Adding on 2 to 3 Marquis Undyings, even if Xian was able to escape unscathed, he would probably be in deep trouble. Would be in a difficult situation. What he needed to do now was to kill 3 more immortal-level ferocious beasts as soon as possible before the Marquis Undying in this powerful forbidden area of space noticed this matter. As long as he could accomplish this goal, even if the Marquis Undying was still alarmed at the last moment, Xian would be able to immediately withdraw. If he retreated, he wouldn't be tied down here. With this thought in mind, Xian activated his maximum speed. In just a few breaths of time, he arrived at the nearest life star. Without the slightest hesitation, he plunged into the atmosphere of the life star. With a spread of his divine sense, he instantly locked onto the position of the immortal rank ferocious beast leader in this life star. What surprised him again was that there were actually 2 immortal rank ferocious beasts in this life star that was mainly dominated by the sub-blood greedy wolf bloodline. Although they were not together at the moment, they were not far from each other. As long as he killed these 2 undying level sub-blood greedy wolves, Xian only needed to kill 1 more before retreating. Xiao! Xian's figure appeared beside one of the inferior blood-greedy wolves. Without the slightest hesitation, he threw a punch at the same time. Hong! This guy had just turned around, but before he could make a sound, his entire body exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Xian immediately waved his hand and guided a strand of Shenlong 7-colored flame from his body, wrapping around the blood mist. In less than 3 breaths' time, he had already condensed it into a blood essence bead the size of an infant's fist. In the next instant, just as this strand of Shenlong 7-colored flame and the blood essence bead was absorbed into his body, an extremely shrill wolf howl came from behind him. "Oh woo! Space Berserk Ape, what do you want?" He turned around and saw that the other undying level sub-blood greedy wolf on this life planet had actually taken the initiative to attack him. Although Xian's body was emitting undying level power and he was no match for it, this was a powerful space forbidden land after all. However, there were also 3 Marquis immortal rank ferocious beast commanders, and they would be here soon. Therefore, this sub-blood greedy wolf seemed to be fearless, giving Xian a feeling that it was completely fearless. "Since you've delivered yourself to me, it's good. This saves me the trouble of searching for you." With a cold smile, Xian's figure flashed, and he arrived in front of this undying level sub-blood greedy wolf in the blink of an eye. Without saying anything, he directly threw a punch. Hum! Hoo! Under Xian's full-force punch, the opponent's huge body directly exploded into a cloud of blood mist that quietly dispersed. At this moment, Xian suddenly waved his hand, and a strand of Shenlong 7-colored flame was guided out from the Shenlong cauldron in his body, directly wrapping around the spreading blood mist. Then, the blood began to flow. Condense. Everything was still completed in less than 3 breaths' time. In the end, Xian waved his hand, and this strand of Shenlong 7-colored flame that was guided out directly entered his body. At the same time, it brought back a blood essence bead the size of an infant's fist and also entered the Shenlong cauldron. Since then, he had killed 4 immortal rank ferocious beast leaders in a short period of time in this powerful forbidden land of stars. 4 more immortal rank ferocious beast blood essences appeared in the Shenlong cauldron in his body. There was only 1 blood essence left. However, according to Xian's estimations, his arrival should have already been exposed at this moment. Whether or not he would be able to successfully obtain the last piece of blood essence was instantly filled with suspense. Roar! Roar! Screech! It was also at this moment that 3 earth-shattering roars and screeches of ferocious beasts suddenly came from the 3 superstars of this powerful starry sky forbidden area. Even though they were separated by an endless void, the sound traveled billions of miles, causing countless powerful ferocious beasts in the surrounding hundreds of life stars to tremble in fear. The beasts all trembled. Chapter 42:15. Although Xian's speed was extremely fast and he immediately rushed to the second planet after killing the 2 starry sky berserk apes, he didn't delay at all and used the fastest speed to kill the 2 immortal-level inferior blood-greedy wolves. However, in the end, the immortal-level blood essence in his hands reached 4. But, as expected, he was exposed. At this time, a figure rushed out from each of the 3 giant ferocious beasts planets around the central territory of this powerful forbidden area of the starry sky. There was an earth-shattering roar from each of their mouths, which shook billions of miles. Hundreds of millions of ferocious beasts on hundreds of ferocious beasts' planets were all trembling. As for the immortal rank ferocious beasts on the hundreds of ferocious beasts' planets, they immediately roared as if they were responding. Their figures turned into silhouettes and rushed out from the atmosphere of the ferocious beasts' planets that they ruled. Moo! From the giant planet on the left of the central region, a green bull rushed out. Its body was 100,000 feet long. Its strength was overwhelming, and its cultivation level was at level 7. It was the strongest of the 3 undying level marquis in this forbidden space zone. Roar! On the right, a starry sky blood crocodile roared as it emerged from the atmosphere of the giant planet it resided in. Its body was also 1,000,000 zhang long, and its slender tail was covered with barbs, causing people to shudder. Perhaps even a giant planet would not be able to withstand a single whip from this giant crocodile tail. Its cultivation level was at level 4 marquis. See! Within the huge star behind the central region, there was an incomparably sharp roar. The official level undying was a black beetle, its bloodline was unknown, and it was small, only 30,000 meters. However, its strength wasn't weak, reaching the sealed level. Level 3 marquis was at the peak of the initial stage. It was only one step away from the middle stage of the marquis level. At this moment, just as Xianxia's figure charged out from the atmosphere of the second target planet, the 3 immortal level ferocious beasts roared furiously as they rushed towards his location. Although they were still tens of millions of miles away, with the cultivation and strength of these 3 ferocious beast commanders, they would be able to arrive in a few breaths at most with their extremely fast speed. In addition, as far as the eye could see, there were 1 to 2 immortal level ferocious beasts on each of the hundreds of life planets that covered hundreds of millions of kilometers of space. They rushed out from the atmosphere of the planets and roared furiously. They were like a tide as they roared towards Yixian. 3 marquis level undying level beasts and hundreds of ordinary undying level beasts. This kind of beast's formation was terrifying. Even with Yixian's current strength, even if he performed the 6th transformation of the 9 transformation demon ape bloodline, he would be in a difficult situation if he was surrounded. He might even be severely injured. However, he didn't have a choice. It wasn't time to retreat yet. Now, Yixian's strength had reached level 9 pinnacle of the undying level. If he wanted to break through to level 1 marquis level undying level, he would need to make a level 21 liquid. Otherwise, the chances of success would be very small if he tried to break through by piling resources. He couldn't make the level 21 liquid like before. According to Yixian's deduction, the success rate of making the liquid with the blood essence as the base was extremely high. However, to make a level 21 liquid, he would need at least 5 blood essences. Now, he already had 4 blood essences. He only needed 1 more. If he retreated now, this powerful forbidden land would be on guard. Even if he sneaked in again in a short period of time, he wouldn't be able to succeed in a sneak attack. Instead, it would allow the enemy to investigate thoroughly and then set up all kinds of defense measures. Of course, other than this forbidden area in the starry sky, there were also other forbidden areas in the surrounding areas of the mulberry tree star region. However, Yixian had already searched for more than 10 days before encountering this place. Who knew how long it would take for him to find the next forbidden area in the starry sky? The best choice was to take advantage of the time before the 3 official level undyings arrived and kill another undying level beast as quickly as possible. This was indeed risky. After all, even if he succeeded in killing an undying level beast, Yixian would need a certain amount of time to condense the blood essences on the spot. The fastest would be half a breath. And with the speed of the 3 marquis level undyings, they would at most take 7 to 8 breaths to reach him and surround him. Following closely behind, the other 100 undying level beast leaders would arrive soon. When that time comes, once the second layer of encirclement was formed, Yixian would be in an even worse situation. I'll give it my all. Isn't it just 3 marquis level undyings? Even if there's an army of thousands, I will still advance. As long as there's a chance, I won't let it go. Fiercely gritting his teeth, Yixian's body suddenly flashed as he raised his head and roared, "See!" Before the roar had even ended, Yixian's body had already disappeared from the spot. He once again teleported with all his strength. In half a breath's time, he traversed hundreds of thousands of miles of space and appeared in front of a beast planet on the left. This beast planet was the closest to Yixian. Previously, a demonic blood-black jackal had already charged out from the atmosphere of this beast planet. It didn't use its extreme speed and instead deliberately slowed down. Obviously, it was waiting for the 3 marquee-level Undyings to arrive and form the first layer of encirclement before charging forward. All right. However, at this moment, he didn't charge forward. Yi Xian took the initiative to close in and teleported. The moment he appeared, he immediately threw a punch. At this moment, Yi Xian's berserk energy surged out. The space around him crackled as if it was about to be torn apart at any moment. Rumble! This demonic blood-black jackal was caught off guard and didn't even have time to dodge. In the blink of an eye, its entire body was blasted into a bloody mist and swiftly exploded. Who? Without any hesitation, Yi Xian suddenly waved his hand and a Shen Nong 7-colored flame was drawn out from the Shen Nong cauldron within him. It completely enveloped the bloody mist that dispersed from the exploding demonic blood-black jackal, and began the refinement of blood essence. Howl. See. Moo. E. Seeing this scene, the 3 marquee-level Undyings in the distant space were enraged. They simultaneously roared and accelerated. In the blink of an eye, they had crossed close to 10 million miles. From the looks of it, they would arrive in at most 2 breaths of time. 2 breaths of time passed in the blink of an eye. Who? As Yi Xian suddenly waved his hand, the 7-colored flame in front of him was directly absorbed into his body. At the same time, he also took away an immortal-level fierce beast blood essence that had just been condensed. Chapter 42:16. No matter who you are today, you won't be able to escape. The green ox was the first to arrive. It was already less than 1,000,000 kilometers away from Yi Xian in the void of the universe. At this moment, a cold voice came out of its mouth, followed by a deep moo. Along with this roar, a green crescent moon slash that was over 3,000 meters long whizzed through the air and cut open the void in its path. Boundless void turbulence gushed out from the cracks and threw the surrounding starry sky into chaos. Boom, boom, roar. 1,000,000 miles behind the green ox, the insectoid with an unknown bloodline suddenly let out a fierce roar. A circle of ripples swept out, moving even faster than the green ox's cyan half-moonlight slash. In an instant, it enveloped an area of 10 million miles. It covered a huge area of space. A formless binding force came. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly felt his body become sluggish. Even someone as strong as him felt like he was stuck in an endless swamp. Without a doubt, this strange circle of ripples had a special sealing effect on the universe space. Under its power, not to mention a normal Undying, even an official-level Undying couldn't teleport. This was clearly to trap Yi Xian here at the first possible moment and prevent him from escaping. Moreover, as the weird ripples spread out and covered the entire void within thousands of kilometers, the insect with an unknown bloodline had clearly succeeded. A little closer, about 1,000,000 kilometers to the right of the void, the starry sky blood crocodile, who was at the 4th level of the Marquis Immortal Realm, didn't say a word. However, its huge crocodile tail, which was full of ferocious barbs, suddenly swung. In an instant, the void exploded with thunder, and an invisible and terrifying shockwave shot towards Yi Xian. It shot over from the distance. There were also sharp barbs on the crocodile tail. This was the talent of an official-level Undying. Each barb seemed insignificant, but Yi Xian didn't doubt its sharpness at all. Even if a superstar was in front of him, it would be pierced into a sieve by these insignificant barbs. In the blink of an eye, the 3 Marquis Undying-level ferocious beast commanders were all within 1,000,000 kilometers of Yi Xian. They launched a surprise attack from the left, right, and front one after another. However, because of the ripples caused by the mysterious arachnid, with Yi Xian's figure as the origin, the surrounding space within a radius of millions of kilometers had been completely sealed. Not only was he unable to teleport, even if he turned around to escape or dodge, his movements would become extremely sluggish as if he was stuck in a swamp. This seemed to be the end of his life. Seeing this scene, the 100 or so immortal-level beasts that followed closely behind the 3 Marquis Undyings immediately roared in excitement, as if they were certain that Yi Xian wouldn't be able to escape this calamity. In fact, at this moment, Yi Xian's heart was in his throat. The reason why he was so determined to stay and continue hunting for the 5th Undying-level beast blood essence was because he was actually quite confident. This confidence came from his interstellar coordinate jump ability. Previously, when he set off from Xianxia starfield, he had already left an interstellar coordinate jump mark in a remote space near a forbidden area in Xianxia starfield. Facing the 3 official-level Undyings approaching at extreme speed, Yi Xian wanted to rely on his interstellar coordinate jump ability to disappear from this place and return to Xianxia star field. However, the bloodline ripple ability of that unknown bug clan bloodline more than 1,000,000 miles to the left was too strange. Even with his level 1 official level Undying's cultivation base, he felt his body become heavy, as if he was stuck in a swamp. Because of this, Yi Xian suddenly lost his confidence. If this ability had the same effect on his interstellar coordinate jump ability, then he would be in big trouble today. Unless the headless infant corpse made a move, even if he didn't die, he would at least lose a layer of skin. While feeling apprehensive, Yi Xian didn't hesitate to immediately order the devouring system in his body to activate the interstellar coordinate jump ability. This time, the jump coordinate was the one he had imprinted on the Mulberry Ji star field not long ago. Xiao! A weak sound broke through the air, and Yi Xian's 30-meter-tall space-violent ape body disappeared in the blink of an eye. There was no trace to be found, as if it was suddenly erased from this world. Moo! Li! Howl! This scene infuriated the 3 marquee-level Undyings who had just arrived. Their earth-shattering roars and howls resounded incessantly. On the hundreds of ferocious beast planets in the distance, countless powerful space beasts were all scared to the point of prostrating themselves on the ground, trembling. At this time, hundreds of millions of miles away in Xianxia star field, a weak light flashed, and the 30-meter-tall space-violent ape appeared instantly. You didn't disappoint this Star Master. After letting out a long breath, Yi Xian immediately dispelled the true form of the 3-headed, 6-armed devil ape and returned to his human form. Thinking back to the critical situation just now, he still felt a slight palpitation in his heart. Xiao! The next moment, as he waved his hand, Yi Xian directly took out the farmer god cauldron in his body. With a flash of his body, he arrived at the entrance of the farmer god cauldron, which was enshrouded in 9-colored fog, and sat down cross-legged. With a flip of his hand, 5 blood essence beads, each the size of an infant's fist, appeared in the palm of his right hand. These 5 blood essence beads would be the basic materials for Yi Xian to refine the level 21 liquid, along with the flesh treasure pulp refined from the remains of the quasi-primordial Almighty Luan Phoenix treasure body. In addition to these 2 basic materials, according to the formula of the level 21 liquid that Yi Xian had deduced, this time, Yi Xian would also add a large amount of top-grade precious materials and medicines, as well as a few drops of the all-evil origin liquid and other top-grade body-forging resources in his possession. Although Yi Xian's experience in concocting the gene cultivation liquid was already impressive, as he had already concocted several vials of the level 20 liquid in one go. However, the method of concocting the level 21 liquid this time was completely different from before. He would use the method of refining the flesh-grade medicine to concoct the gene cultivation liquid. For him, this was the first time he had concocted the gene cultivation liquid in such a way. In addition, the gap between ordinary undying and marquee undying was like an invisible moat, and there were simply too many variables. Therefore, even Yi Xian himself wasn't very confident about the success of concocting the level 21 liquid this time. He could only say that it was 50-50 and that it was just a try. Chapter 42:17. Inside the farmer god cauldron, at the bottom of the central domain volcano. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Faint sounds of breaking through the air rang out continuously. Streaks of dim light shot out from the cauldron above the central domain volcano, and appeared directly above the flame pool at the bottom of the volcano. After a sudden pause, the streaks of light that shot over instantly stopped in midair. Shockingly, they were the various top-notch materials and cultivation resources that Yi Xian had prepared for the refinement of the level 21 liquid. The flesh and blood elixir refined from the remains of the quasi-desolation Almighty Luan Phoenix. 5 drops of immortal-level ferocious beast blood essences. 5 drops of evil origin elixir. And various other top-grade materials and medicines. All of them were the various resources that Yi Xian had deduced with the help of the devouring system in his body. Whoosh! The sound of flames whistling rang out. From the flame pool below, a majestic Shenong 7-colored flame whizzed up. In an instant, it condensed into a 7-colored cauldron with a radius of 3 meters. It was small and simple, and it exuded an extraordinary aura. In the next instant, as this small flame cauldron formed purely from the farmer god's 7-colored flame, the 5 drops of immortal-level ferocious beast blood essences and other materials and resources that shot out from the mouth of the farmer god cauldron automatically flew up and entered this small flame cauldron that was only about 10 feet in radius. From then on, the refinement of the level 21 liquid began instantly. Not far away, the 8 great guardian deities, Flying Centipede, Patriarch Silver G, and the others who were originally in seclusion were already alarmed. They all walked out of their seclusion cave abodes and stared blankly at the seven-colored cauldron above the flame pool at the center of the central domain volcano. They all looked at each other with puzzlement on their faces. At the same time, there was also a look of great anticipation on their faces. They were even whispering to each other and discussing in private. Boss is doing something big again. Is he going to refine purplish gold top-grade flesh and blood elixirs this time? I don't think so. There's still so much left from last time. He can't possibly use it all up in such a short time. And this time, he didn't use the remains of any powerful primordial creatures at all. Instead, I see many top-grade materials and medicines, and there seem to be 5 drops of blood essences. Don't tell me they're all refined from immortal-level ferocious beasts' flesh and blood? What is this? The flesh elixir is the real good stuff. I heard Boss say that it was refined from the remains of a Luan Feng bird. When Boss concocted the level 19 and level 20 elixir, he would use 1 tube each time. This time he actually used 5 tubes. Hiss. Boss can't be concocting. No, it should be refining. He can't be refining a level 21 liquid, right? That should be the case. Boss's cultivation base has already reached the 9th level of the sempiternal realm. It's indeed time for him to consume the level 21 elixir. My god, the level 21 liquid. 1 bottle and it created an official level undying warrior. Old centipede, you're not far from this level. Compared to our leader, you're only 2 small levels away. They all looked at Flying Centipede, who was an ordinary level 8 undying warrior. Although this old man didn't say anything, his heaving chest and the burning light in his eyes betrayed his inner feelings. He was so excited that he couldn't be more excited. Boom! 2 hours later, a loud roar resounded above the flame pool. It attracted the gazes of the Flying Centipede, Old Monster Silver G, the 8 great guardian deities, and the others in an instant. At this moment, all 10 of them had burning eyes. They even subconsciously held their breaths and paused for a moment. Along with the huge roar, the cauldron formed by the pure Xianxia 7-colored flame above the flame pool dissipated instantly. A stream of 7-colored flames whizzed back to the flame pool below like a river. What remained above the flame pool were 2 round beads the size of infant fists. Although they were the same size as the blood essence of the fierce beasts, they were completely different. The blood essence was blood red and emitted dense qi and blood energy. As for these 2 round beads, although they were also the size of infant fists, they emitted 7-colored lights. There was a dreamy halo on the surface of the beads, emitting an ancient and heavy aura. Level 21 elixir. To be precise, it should be a level 21 elixir. In the past, the elixir produced using the method of genetic cultivation fluid was liquid in tubes, so it was called elixir. Now, using the method of refining flesh and blood medicine, the final product was solid like elixir pills, so it was called elixir pills. However, the effect was the same. It allowed cultivators who walked the path of body cultivation to break through a large human potential shackle when they reached the peak of the 9th stage of the major realm. From there, they could smoothly step into the next major realm. There are actually 2 level 21 elixirs? At this moment, Yi Xian's voice sounded from the mouth of the Xianxia cauldron above the volcano in the central region, revealing a strong sense of surprise. Originally, he thought that it would be good enough if he could successfully refine the level 21 elixir this time. He had only expected to get 1 elixir. However, in the end, not only did he successfully refine the elixir, but he also obtained 2 level 21 elixirs. This was definitely an unexpected surprise. It was only now that he suddenly realized. He had previously underestimated the effect of the Xianxia 7-colored flame on various elixirs. The reason why he could obtain 2 level 21 elixirs this time was obviously because of the Xianxia 7-colored flame. However, none of this was important. For Yi Xian, what was important was that he could break through to the first stage of the Marquis realm from the peak of the 9th stage of the Immortal realm to the first stage of the Marquis realm in an instant if he swallowed one of the 2 level 21 elixirs in front of him. This wasn't the strength of the Marquis realm after activating the demon ape bloodline in his body and manifesting the true form of the 3-headed 6-armed demon ape. This was a realm that he could reach in his normal state, which was absolutely different. Whoosh! The next moment, a high-grade small space box shot out from the mouth of the Xianxia cauldron above the volcano in the central region. After entering the belly of the volcano, it directly took one of the 2 level 21 elixirs into it. Then it whizzed back and was carefully stored in Yi Xian's body. Immortal Realm. Domain. This was a level 21 elixir, which could make a Marquis realm from the peak of the 9th stage of the Immortal Realm to the Marquis realm in an instant. For the large races and top powers in the 3 main dimensions of the universe, a level 20 elixir that could make an undying old monster was enough to drive them crazy, let alone a level 21 elixir that could make an undying old monster. If this news spread, even the emperors and emperors of the large races and top powers would be shocked.